Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday show After Dark. They're like, wait, what's Matt doing here? Matt's not around After Dark. I'm occasionally on almost everything. I'm not going to be on Chewed Gum or TACIS. I'm almost never on Skeptalk. Speaking of Skeptalk, my co-host tonight, Dr. Adair, is a frequenter on Skeptalk. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. I am busy in a good way, and life's treating me all right now.
That's awesome. Our producer tonight is Lux, who they just walked us right through a bug or a defect, which seems to be gone. This is a call-in show. 720-619-2288 is the number for you to call. And there's also a link down below in the description if you want to call from a computer, although if you have a cell phone or a phone number to call in, that would be great. Aaron, what do we really want to hear? Like when it comes to, we've heard all kinds of stuff. What are you looking to hear? I know what I've been looking to hear for 20 years now, but what would you like from callers defending whatever they believe?
Well, I'm not expecting to necessarily hear a new argument because, boy oh boy, do they get a little repetitive after a while. But can we have a caller come in and we can actually go to brass tacks on whether, say, like the contingency argument, and Kate, can we actually figure out what our premises are that we actually disagree on rather than just nuh-uhs and having to use the mute button prodigiously as our sometimes animated guests might require. I'm hoping for some good Zen time. I've got my tea ready to go. I've got a good t-shirt on. Let's just see what the audience wants to talk about.
Well, we got callers queuing up right now. We've got a couple are in there auto screening. We'll see if we get theist. I tell you, one of the things about the Sunday show and the Sunday show After Dark is primarily focused on a defense of religious claims, of gods, of what do you believe? Why do you believe it, and why do you think we should believe it? And in the course of listening to everything for years, I mean, people will be like, "Oh, I believe in God because I had this one really amazing experience, and I think that God is the best explanation for it." And I can already tell you the questions you're going to get from us are going to be things like, why do you think that God is a candidate explanation for what you experienced? But also, even if that were good enough for you to believe, why should we believe? And what kind of God are you? Like there was someone who called earlier who had an experience that may or may not have been some kind of interaction with a loved one that had passed on. And one of the first questions I saw in chat was, hang on, I've got loved ones that passed on. Why is it you get a special weird treat and I don't? And why is God so bad at playing charades? Why do we have to, why is it, where's all the interpretation a necessity? We have to go read a bunch of different scriptures. We have to learn and become like, of the two of us, I'm the least expert in anything. And Aaron's an expert in a number of things. And yet it seems like both of us need to go become experts in about 23 more things, although the believers don't. Like, it'll be like, I'm no expert, but let me tell you about this. And earlier I was listening to someone say, well, I don't know how this works, but I know you're wrong. I'm interested in how you can get those kinds of justifications. And I'm not saying that it's always fallacious. For example, let's see. I do know how an internal combustion engine works, but um, let's say I don't know how the GPU, I don't even know how many cores are in the GPU in the machine that I just bought. But if you tell me it's a billion cores, I'm going to say I'm pretty damn sure you're wrong. I don't think we have billion core GPUs yet, but I could be wrong.
Sounds like you just bought an entire data center.
Somebody in chat start commenting on how I have headphones instead of my in-ears. I had to get new in-ear monitors, and the cable is too short. I got new ones, and because I broke them during the last show that we did, I yanked them out of my ear, and part of it went flying. So I got some replacements, and I'm waiting on a longer cable to come in. So yes, you get to see me old school gaming stuff and everything else. Yes, fake gamer for sure, for sure. All right, you want to get into some calls?
Let's go for it. I see we got at least a couple people lined up. Let's take them on.
Okay. Yitz is a theist that's calling from Pennsylvania. Pronouns are he, him. Wants to talk about the Middle East. Hey, Yitz, what did you want to talk about?
Oh, hi. I just wanted to clarify for your listening audience, because there are so many people out there who are right now freaking out about Statement 224 for the 2027 NDAA. They think that the IDF and the United States military are literally going to fuse together, and Israel is going to take over the country, which is utterly ridiculous.
None of this is what this show's about, Yitz. I don't need I don't need a reporter. I don't need a reporter to come in and give me news on what certain policies mean. That wasn't what the show's about.
Okay, we can discuss. I do have a psychoanalysis on theists and atheists. I could say.
You have what?
A psychoanalysis.
A psychoanalysis on who?
On theists, and you could also apply it to atheists as well.
Why should I care about that?
Well, it's an interesting argument. It's basically
an interesting argument for what? Hang on. A psychoanalysis isn't an argument, and I don't know what qualifications you have to do any sort of psychoanalysis on anybody, but I don't have any qualifications to verify your psychoanalysis. But when you say it's an interesting argument, it's an argument for what? Your psychoanalysis of theist and atheist, what's it an argument for?
Well, I called in a few months ago, I believe, was
I'm sorry, whether or not you called in a few months ago doesn't seem to be relevant to my question. What is it an argument for?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to explain it. And he agreed with it. He agreed with me that...
No. I don't need you to tell me what happened Okay, Yitz. You are not starting off the show very well. I've had a really good week. My wife's had surgery. She's recovering. I'm here doing a lot of work. Aaron and I are here to have conversations about what people believe and why, things that are potentially beneficial to the audience who has tuned in. And I've now asked you a couple different times, and it seems like you have, I don't know, co-host or super guest syndrome, where what you really wanted to do was talk to us, and you'll just pick whatever topic, you don't want to talk about Middle East? I'll give you a psychoanalysis, and I'll say it's an interesting argument. It's an interesting argument for what? I don't need a background story. I don't need to hear what conversation you have with anybody else in the entire history of the world. What is an argument for?
Yeah, so it could be, you could conclude it's an argument for why one should believe in God. Even if you can't objectively prove it, it's subjectively, it's a good reason to believe in God.
Okay, I'm not interested. Say goodbye, Yitz.
Okay, bye. Thank you for taking my call.
Goodbye. I want to, that was a little unfair because I didn't get Aaron in on this, and I definitely want theist calls, but let me be as clear as I can. When you say it could be an argument, even if you couldn't abductively prove it, for a subjective reason to believe in a God, I don't need any arguments, abductive, inductive, or deductive, for a subjective argument that might be a reason people believe in God. People believe in God for all kinds of things. We had somebody call in recently, they believe in God just because they prefer it. Somebody else picked Catholicism because they like what they think the message of Catholicism is. That's not the kind of stuff we're looking for. I don't need book reports. I don't need foreign correspondents to tell me what's going on with the IDF or not going on with the IDF. I just want people to come in and have a conversation. You've got one complete dipshit that talks a lot here, but who's done this for decades, and you've got an expert on physics and any number of other subjects. So where are the people calling in to explain how evolution's wrong, how creationism, what version of creationism is true? How do you know that there's a God? How has science completely failed us? Where is the good reason to believe? Not a subjective possible. I mean, I could just say I believe in God because I'd like to believe that we go on living in heaven forever. That's not evidence or an argument. And I don't need a psycho. How would a psycho? I'm almost sorry I hung up on Yitz just because there might have been see, this is the thing. I'm a bad employee of the line. Because I'm bad at running my own channel too. I got a couple 100,000 subscribers and didn't even monetize it until I was almost at 200,000, because I don't care about clicks and I don't care about money. I want to have the conversation. And Jimmy is like, yeah, that's all good, but the line doesn't work if you don't actually get money. So you can go to linemerch.com. You can support us at patreon.com. You can throw in your super chats and everything here. But what I really need to do is when somebody like Yitz calls in and says, I'd like to do a psychoanalysis that applies to theists and atheists and might be a subjective, abductive argument for why someone could possibly believe in a God, I suppose I should let him ramble for a little while. Maybe we'll institute a super chat of, I was going to let you finish Yitz, but somebody super chatted $50 and, they were betting that you wouldn't actually get to a point before I saw it, and you didn't. So goodbye. I just want to have good conversations.
I was at least going to wonder if he's going to do psychoanalysis. Is he going to, it's definitely not my expertise, but was he going to go Freudian, Jungian, Lacanian? How is he going to even justify which approach to all of this, let alone make what will probably be an unconvincing argument for why we ought to believe for no good objective reason, which he basically admitted that he did not have any good objective reason.
Yeah, I always get a little concerned when somebody is like, "Oh, I'm just calling to talk. We could talk about this, or we could talk about this." If you've got somebody in chat says he's a Zionist genocide apologist. Okay, well, I don't know any of that, and I'm not able to dig in, but I genuinely don't feel like. I mean, I'm in a pretty good mood. I don't feel like digging in on politics and MAGA stuff unless we absolutely have to. I wouldn't mind, thanks to Richard Dawkins and some other people crawling out of the woodwork again, I wouldn't mind setting some transphobe straight. But really, all I really want is for somebody to call in and say, I know you've been sitting around waiting all these years, and I know Aaron has studied this stuff. I got it. Here is the evidence-based, rational justification why any reasonable person should believe in this particular God. Here's the God I'm talking about. Here's the justification. Here's how you can verify it. I mean, isn't that what we do for anything else? Like, is there any finding, any rational finding in reality, whether it's considered hard science or not, that proceeds in any other way other than, here's what I'm talking about, here's why I think it's true, here's the supporting arguments and evidence, here's why I think you should believe it too, and then you duke it out or find flaws in your methodology? I mean, people are like, oh, Matt, you've misunderstood. You can't prove God with science. Okay. Why not? I mean, either there's a God or there's not, right? Are we all at least in agreement that those are the only two options? Either there's some God or no God. If there's no God, we're done. Everybody's wrong. Everybody who says there is wrong. If there's some God, then either that God is detectable in some way because it interacts in a detectable way with reality, or it does not interact with reality in any detectable way. And the God that doesn't interact with reality in a detectable way is empirically and logically identical from our perspective to the God that doesn't exist. I mean, you can't be running around saying, oh, I found the God that can't be found. That's just really weird. So believers around the world throughout history are claiming I'm talking about a detectable God. I have detected a being of some sort, an agent of some sort. I don't necessarily know all the details, but I have detected this thing because it interacts with reality. And they do. It's answered prayers, it's what their inferences are about creation, etc. If you have a God that doesn't interact in reality in a detectable way, I guess you could call in and explain how it is you think you've detected the undetectable. Yeah, I can't think of a way, but I wouldn't mind knowing. But here we go. We have a couple of atheists on the line. The theists are not quite ready yet. But Marquis calling from North Carolina, pronouns are him, about the atheist atrocities fallacy. Hey, Marquis, what's going on?
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Oh, I'm in a pretty good mood, but I'm expecting somebody to fuck that up any second.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, I get it. I've been watching you for years. Trust me, I see how people really can piss you off. But, yeah, I did actually make a super chat about this a while back about the atheist atrocities fallacy, but I couldn't really go into much detail about it because it was like towards the end of the show. So I figured I'd go into detail about it now. Everything you said.
We'll give you some leeway. I'm actually going to listen because I've been talking since the show started, and let Aaron jump in to kind of direct questions or whatever else until I can't stop myself, like always.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Fire away.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's like how you were talking about that, these regimes, they're not, what it really was the state being the entity and such. And I 100% agree with you on that. But then I also wanted to go into extra detail about that too, because a lot of people like to reference even Nazi Germany as like being this evil atheist regime. Oh, the Nazis were atheists. And I'm like, come on, that's just bullshit. They were not atheists. Like, and then another thing too is just a lot of people like to reference communism because, again, they like to reference the Soviet Union or other communists, or even North Korea, because, they're also communist. And it's like, okay, communism is a political ideology. What does that have to do with me not believing in a God? I never thought once in my life, hey, I'm just going to do all these terrible things in the name of atheism. I'm like, atheism doesn't tell me to do anything. I just simply don't believe in a God. So that just doesn't make any sense as an argument to me. And to me, I feel like if you need to believe in a God to not do something wicked like murdering or whatever atrocity, I think that's more disturbing.
Well, I think I agree that we have a hard time going from person doesn't believe in God, therefore the atrocities done under the regime is caused by that lack of belief. And especially like in some of the countries you mentioned, the status of religion was much more complex than just like pure atheism or enforced atheism. And you mentioned, of course, the Nazi regime, where uh, if it was 1930, before the rise of the Nazis, and you were going around and doing a poll of people in Germany, you're not going to find too many out and out atheists. In fact, quite the minority. And of those, they're probably the communists that the Nazis would then go and put in concentration camps. So, frankly, the atheists were the ones more likely to be targeted by the upcoming fascist regime than promoting it. So there's that aspect. It's like the country was already mostly Christian. The Nazi regime comes in. It actually does persecute groups that are at least aligned with atheism, among, of course, many other groups. And a lot of the rhetoric is not just tinged with, but overflowing with religious rhetoric in both words, in artifacts, in symbols. This was not a regime built on secular humanism, not within 100 billion light years of it. Hop over to our friends. I'm using that word not accurately, in the Soviet Union, and also the status of religion was complex in that my understanding is sometimes there was like direct suppression of religion in the Soviet Union, but how that was done can also be indirect. I remember some of the documentaries watching saying like, hey, when the Nazis were actually approaching Moscow, Stalin like opened up the churches for people to come in and basically do late night masses and prayer sessions for what was going on because the Soviets feel like they needed a miracle to survive this. And it's not like all the peasants just switched over to atheism because Joe Stalin said, that's what you're all going to believe now. It's just not realistic. My understanding also, a lot of like the promotion of atheism within Soviet Russia is almost like cartoonishly stupid, where they literally were thinking like, hey, we're going to set up these organizations, we're going to drive around with placards and megaphones and convince everyone in the country that atheism is true and the God belief is silly. It's like, yeah, how has that worked well for the Jehovah Witnesses with their placards and announcements? How many Mormons have come around and by passing out literature have convinced people? It's like, it's kind of comical, the idea that the central government thought this was going to do anything. I know less about how China has suppressed religion inside of itself, so I can't speak to that. But let's put it this way. I don't think Mao or Stalin were somehow going to be somehow less repressive if they had supernatural beliefs. What they had was beliefs in themselves and their ideology, and that was sufficient for them to do horrendously terrible things for their ultimate goals, either personal or ideological.
But yeah, you're right though. Even if every atheist throughout history had just been the absolute worst people doing absolutely the worst things, that wouldn't in any way be an argument for a God.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree. And you know what? I'm actually glad you brought up the fact that Stalin brought back the churches in the 1940s, because that is also true as well. So it's just that, like, and I'm also glad that you pointed out the Nazis being religious, because even their belt buckles, I think, had "God is with us" written in German. So it's like, again, how does that? Yeah. So how does that mean the Nazis were atheists?
Marquis, whether or not they were atheists is irrelevant, and whether or not it said "Gott mit uns" on their belt buckles or not, that doesn't mean that God's actually with them. It doesn't mean that they're representative of a particular religious truth or anything. All of this is irrelevant. All of this is just kind of ad hominem dismissals of entire groups of people. And it's, it's no better for our side to be doing it than theirs.
Now, one thing we could do to try to turn the tables on things, do we have examples of religious organizations doing terrible things, saying they are doing them explicitly for religious reasons? So when you had, for example, the Confederacy form, and you had states like Texas saying the reason we're seceding is the God-given truth of racism and slavery. So they were basically pointing to Christianity and the Bible to justify why they were going to break away and maintain an evil institution. You don't have too many atheists saying, according to the lack of Bible, let's enslave people. That's not rhetoric I know of from any political entity. But we have plenty of religious entities that are happy to use religious language to do atrocious things.
Yep. Well, Mark Gee, I appreciate the call. We're going to move on to, we got some theists and deists and other stuff lining up here, but yes, we're all in agreement. Saying atheists are terrible people, or Christians are terrible people, or Jews are terrible people, or Muslims are terrible people is irrelevant to whether or not there's a God. So,
All right.
all right.
I can be terrible all on my own.
Take care. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Hey, well, here's a fairly rare call. Dr. Erica, pronounced she, her, from somewhere in the Midwest, is an agnostic deist, former Southern Baptist who wants to ask, this is a completely different question than I saw when you first popped in. So how are you, doctor?
Pretty good, Matt. How are you?
Oh, fat, dumb, and happy.
Well, I'm a retired, I guess you would call me a boomer, internal medicine doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a deist pretty much all my adulthood. But since I was indoctrinated as a Southern Baptist during childhood and got baptized at the age of 9, I just wanted to ask you one simple question, since I know that you used to be a Southern Baptist pastor, and
Not good.
my memory says that they say once saved, always saved. And I was just wondering, if I'm a deist, does that mean I have that little insurance card in my back pocket? Because I did get baptized at the age of 9, but I've been a deist since adulthood.
Well, it's kind of irrelevant. So first of all, I wasn't a pastor. I was studying to be a pastor, and I found my way out before I really did it. But I was active in the church. You got saved at 9. What took you so long? I did it at 5. It's it's one of those things where, I got saved at a revival at Ashland Baptist Church in Kansas City, Missouri, and got baptized shortly thereafter. Once saved, always saved is a really peculiar doctrine. What I can tell you is, if I were to put on my Southern Baptist hat, you being a deist is no insurance policy. It's nothing in your back card. You're on no different footing than me as an atheist or anybody else. The only thing that matters is, were you actually redeemed, washed in the blood? Was your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life? And nobody knows but God. And so the answer I got, there are pastors and former friends of mine who think that I am still saved and I'm still going to heaven, despite everything I've done. And then there are family members who believe a once saved, always saved doctrine, but they don't believe I was ever actually saved. They believe I was just playing along. And I think they're right. I think everybody's playing along. But I don't see any difference between what I did, what I believed, and how sincere I was than anybody else. But I don't think I was ever actually saved. I think I just thought I was. And I think that's true for all the rest of them until somebody proves me wrong. So yeah, no, you don't have a deistic. As a matter of fact, you're on really, and I'm sorry to do this, because you don't have to get into it if you don't want to. You're on really weak footing as a deist, because deists are literally the undetectable God, and I don't know how anybody could believe in a God that they can't detect. But
well,
so, yeah,
see, that's where I think that's where we would disagree, because even though I call myself a deist, it seems like I've been in search of God all my life. It's like it doesn't have to be a long time, but I think about what I call the God question. I think about it every day. Every day it crosses my mind something about God. And
me too.
I've never had a personal experience like visions or hallucinations or anything, but sometimes I do feel like there is something out there that watches out for me. And
that's not a deistic God, though. Maybe,
I might
maybe,
be. I may have the wrong label. I may be
yeah, you might have.
giving
So
myself the wrong label.
A deistic God specifically is a God that doesn't intervene in reality in any detectable way. At most, it started the ball rolling and then it fucked off. It might not even exist anymore. And so that's why I kind of go after deism, because people are like, oh, that's when they're claiming to have detected the undetectable. It sounds like you're not convinced of any God, but you don't want to say you're an atheist.
Right. In fact, I would refuse for anybody to call me an atheist.
But if you
say
don't
I'm
believe in
the
God,
I
the
don't-
label fits.
Well, I say I don't say I don't believe in God. I say I don't know. In fact, I hope it's true.
Okay, but that's not answering the question.
I'm in.
Do you believe the
If I
sun
believe in
rises in the
God?
east and sets in the west? And if you say, I don't know, are you saying you don't know what the sun does, or you don't know what you believe?
Well, I know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but God is a different kind of question.
Why?
And to me, it is. All I can say is, to me, it is. Like
That's
I said,
not the way reality works, though.
I know, and in fact, I knew you were going to say that, but I'm satisfied with the fact that I do believe in personal experience. I listen to other people's personal experience, and of course, being a doctor, I've heard a lot.
What do you mean? When you say you believe in personal experience, I believe personal experiences happen, so I believe in personal experience, but that doesn't mean I believe what people think about their personal experience. So if somebody tells me they were abducted by aliens, I'll believe that they are honestly reporting to the best of their ability what they think happened to them, but that doesn't mean I believe they were actually abducted by aliens.
Right. But I'm talking about, like, last week, I think you had a call from a caller that said that she had 2 cats, but felt like she had 3 cats in the house. Those kind of things, when people tell me that, I'm really interested. You know, if I had known her, if she had said that to me, I would be asking her a whole lot of questions. I would want to investigate. I would want to go in her house and see what's going on there, you know? And I would tell her, like what you told her, that, you know, we can't investigate it, therefore, you know, why would you believe it? But I think that these things are being investigated, and by legitimate scientific researchers. And I'm interested in those things.
What things are being investigated by legitimate science, and what are the results?
I think, you know, I like I said, I'm a retired boomer, so I'm not into remembering the name of the investigators or anything like that. But I think
I just need to know what types of things.
legitimate, like near-death experience. There are doctors out there.
There are lots of claims of people who have had things that fit into this category of near-death experiences. What has been the scientific conclusion we've reached about them?
Well, it depends on who's the investigator and what they conclude.
That's not the way science works.
That doesn't sound like a very good investigation. Well, if you get different answers about what the facts are from different people, then you can throw out and say, hey, there isn't apparently an objective thing you can point to. And it's definitely not going to become somehow evidence of something if the experts can't agree. And this assumes that the experts don't agree on this. And I'm just leaving that as a possibility before we do a deep dive.
Well, have you heard the expression, only 4 out of 5 doctors agree? See, that's where...
You know what that is? That's an 80% consensus.
Right.
Okay. Do we have any kind of scientific consensus on the facts about near-death experiences?
I don't know what their percentage is.
The answer is no.
I just know that but I think there are legitimate researchers out there exploring it and trying to do
I'm wondering.
science and trying to use scientific methods.
Erica,
Okay.
Here's the thing, though, if I might jump in.
Please.
You are saying that because there exists possibly a decent researcher, therefore there's actually evidence. That's not evidence. That's not objective. That's a wish.
But there's not just one person. There's lots of doctors, or doctors,
more than one person
not
can wish.
necessarily physicians. Not just physicians. There's legitimate doctors, PhDs, whatever, that are studying the supernatural. Let's call it the supernatural, not just near-death experiences.
There's no way to study the supernatural.
Well, I would say this so here's the thing. Indeed, there have been people who have done paranormal research for over a century. How much of this is actually validated and survived peer review, critical review, and seeing that there's actually a phenomenon? And after well over a century of paranormal research, the answer is nothing. That's a failed paradigm. And hoping that just because some people are still putting energy into it, therefore there's something worth studying, is again wishful thinking.
I mean, people think homeopathy works, but we know that's bullshit.
And yet you can still buy it at CVS.
Well, all I can say is I'm interested in it, and I explore it every day. Now, I'm pretty sure you're not going to like this name. I just discovered Stephen Meyer, and I'm really looking into the consciousness thing, because I believe when you're talking about personal experience, God can only contact you through your consciousness. I mean, that's the only way he could
Why do you believe that?
Contact you. Because that's the only way he could. You have to be conscious in order
Dr. Erica, when I
experience.
say, why do you believe that's the only way he could do it? You can't just say, because that's the only way he could do it. I'm asking you, why do you, I don't know anything about a God or what a God can or can't do. You say you don't believe in a God, but now you're telling me that the God that you don't necessarily believe in can only interact with people through their consciousness.
Yes,
How do you know that?
I know I am an if person. So I would say if there is a God out there, the only way that he would be able to contact people is through their consciousness. And
how do you know that?
As far as I'm concerned, when you talk about what's the percentage, people have been having personal, experiences. I know, I don't know. I told you, that's why I said I was
Why do you keep making claims? You're going to make me say something very not nice, but you don't sound like a very good doctor if you're making claims and then you can't back them up. It's one thing to be interested in something. It's one thing to pursue something. It's one thing to go out and do research on stuff. It is something else to say, I don't really know what's out there, but whatever it is, it can only contact you through your consciousness, and then offer nothing in support of that.
Because people don't have personal experiences without a conscience.
No.
I mean, you have
you
to
don't
be.
think,
You have to have.
Do you think?
Aware.
Do you think a God could physically appear right in front of me right now and speak to me vocally?
No, I don't know.
Then why the fuck are you making other claims?
Because I know that the consciousness has to we know that people cannot be conscious without their brains, and if God is going to contact you, it's going to be through your conscious.
Isn't that true for you? Are you only able to contact me through my conscious?
Not you, but God.
No. Are you able to contact me in any other way than through my conscious?
Well, you would not be able to have, like we're talking right now, you would not be able to have this experience if you weren't consciously aware.
Correct, which makes your statement correct, which makes your claim completely trivial. that God has to use your conscious mind to communicate with you. That's true for everyone, everything at all times. Every single bit of information you get about reality is filtered through your senses, which we can verify for reliability, and into your consciousness. So why are you making this claim about God that is true for anything and everything?
Well, that's why I am making it. I'm using my intuition to say that if there was a God, he would not be able to contact you without you being consciously aware.
That's a matter of intuition. Cool.
The reason I'm saying that is because that's how people have any kind of experience. You can only have an experience with a person that's consciously aware.
Aaron, I'm going to stop because I'm going to be a prick in a minute, and I don't want to.
Well,
yes, please
I will
don't.
attempt to go with things.
I hope I'm really a nice lady.
Well, I'll try to be a nice guy, but I can't promise everything. But I will do my best. So Dr. Erica, just taking it as a given that that communication requires consciousness. Okay, this becomes a rather moot point because the question is God communicating in any way? We don't have to talk about the limitations on it or tautologies about it if the question is if there's anything communicating at all. My position is there is nothing that's doing any sort of communicating. And the various collection of experiences that people have had that have been attributed to God, we either cannot validate them, or often we can actually figure out what might be causing those sorts of experiences and see often how they're culturally derivative and not pointing to an external reality.
Well, all I can say is my intuition tells me that people have been talking about personal experience since whenever the documents of, I don't believe in religious dogma. I don't believe in institutionalized religion. But whenever the documents were found that got translated into not just the Bible, but all the other religions, people have been talking about their personal experiences all the time, and they get dismissed. People, the Catholic Church would call them heretics or whatever, and I say you don't dismiss that, you study it. And you were talking about the percentage of consensus. Well, at least as far as studying it, we've got however many people have been around since the first BCE and before. All these people just
BCE and before? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah,
Dr. Erica, yes, there have been lots and lots of claims about people experiencing things. But guess what? We also have lots and lots and lots of claims that we think are bogus. Let me just give a medical example relating to this as well. Are you familiar with the various healing temples to Asclepius from ancient Greece and Rome?
No, I'm not that. I haven't taken a deep dive on anything like that. I'm just
okay. Well, I mean, it is worth noting. Like a lot of the symbolism a lot of the symbolism you use in medicine comes from there. Like the staff with a stake around it, that comes from ancient Greek iconography. So Hippocratic Oath, of course, also extremely ancient and Greek, as the name kind of indicates. But here is the interesting thing. At these various temples to Asclepius, who was this god of healing, who also was struck by a lightning bolt by Zeus and then felt bad about it, then brought him up to live in the heavens as an immortal. So dying and rising god business there. But again, another thing. On those various temples, they have all sorts of testimonies from satisfied customers. And one of the stories is this person came to a temple of Asclepius and had empty eye sockets, not bad eyes, literally empty eye sockets. And the claim to the inscription was this person came to the temple and they left with fully grown, functioning eyes again. Do you believe that inscription claim?
No, I am skeptical. I am a skeptical person. I'm just not. I can't take it to God, though. I can't be.
This was literally attributed to a god of healing and written in stone as a testimonial. So if you feel like these are not reliable testimonies, then I don't know what you would get from having a larger collection of testimonies that all contradict each other and are at least as dubious as the person coming in with empty eye sockets walking out with functioning eyes.
Well, that's going to seem fantastic to me because this is the year 2026. So I am skeptical in the modern age. I guess
then why aren't you skeptical broadly?
If only you'd have been skeptical. If only you'd been skeptical before BCE instead of waiting till 2026. Imagine what the world would be like.
Well, I'm just saying I don't discount personal experience. I'm interested in them.
You just did.
I
just gave you a personal experience. I gave you literally written in stone a person
Aaron
claiming
gave you
to have
personal
read all their
experience
eyes.
and you dismissed it.
But that was, well, because I am a skeptic.
No, you're not.
That sounds fantastic to me.
That's not how skepticism works. You should stop calling yourself a skeptic. And now I'm starting to wonder if you're a doctor in the same way that Ben Carson and Oz are.
Well, okay, I told you that I was going to bring up the name Stephen Meyer, right? And he's studying consciousness. I have not done it yet, but I am going to be looking at his credentials, how he's doing his
I can tell you his credentials
studies.
right now. His PhD is in philosophy, and he works for the Discovery Institute. And pretty much all of his writing is to try to denigrate evolution and claim that somehow life is just too complicated, therefore it must have been a god. And that's really hundreds of pages of what he's written on over decades. So I don't know why you think he'd be a consciousness researcher when he has no credentials relevant to that. And what he does work on is basically to put him on the fringe outside of the scientific credentials. And when people have gone and examined his scientific claims, they find out, oh, this person is at the very least not correctly representing where the science is. And harsher terms have been used, but I'm going to avoid a libel statement at the moment. Enough to say this is not a reliable person to go to.
Yeah, when you start looking into his credentials, you can stop after the first 2 lines at Wikipedia. Stephen Charles Meyer is an American philosopher of science and historian. He's an advocate of intelligent design, a pseudoscientific creationist argument for the existence of God. What more do you need to know? Where's his credentials on consciousness? Why would you give a fuck what he has to say about anything?
Well, I know he's got a movie coming out soon, a couple of days.
Oh, well, that's a real fucking good reason to pay attention to him. By all means, a movie. Good job.
Now, to be fair, I did see a movie recently about.
That's what skeptics do. That's what skeptics do. We wait until an uncredentialed buffoon makes a movie, and then we pay attention. Right? That's what skeptics do.
Well, the skeptic in me says I have to see it for myself.
There is no skeptic in you.
Like I said. Okay. Well, I think there is. Most people that know me will say, "Oh, she's a skeptical person."
Dr. Erica, if I may, because you're a little older than me, how much did you watch the TV show In Search of when it was premiering?
It was a long time ago. I don't watch the reruns. I do remember that.
Oh, I'm not asking for the reruns, but you know of the show, right?
I don't watch it now. No.
That's fine, but I mean, you know of the show, you know its basic history.
I know of
very basic.
I know of the show. Yes, I know of the show.
So I bring this up because the original pilot episode wasn't actually a TV episode. It was a film documentary, and I think it even got an award for documentary when it came out in like 75. And the full title was In Search of Ancient Aliens. So it was literally a documentary trying to promote Eric von Daniken and aliens built the pyramid kinds of arguments. It was a documentary in theaters, and I don't think that gave it any actual truth value to the things it was claiming. And saying now that there's a documentary by someone who's promoting something that already back 21 years ago was found to be in a court of law to actually be deceptively pushing religion into classrooms. This was actually the finding of a Republican judge in Pennsylvania back in 2005. And he's literally just saying the exact same sort of shit again 20 years later, and now we're going to take it seriously because the same institution with Christian-funded money is now making a documentary. The fact they're making movies instead of science should tell you how seriously we should be accepting their scientific arguments. I do science in my free time and try to publish papers. That's how I spend things. If I'm spending my time making movies with million-dollar budgets, clearly I got my priorities screwed up.
Well, like I said, I myself haven't taken the deep dive on it. I'm just saying that it's something that I am going to explore. I have to see it for myself. I'm
just letting you know that this exploration was actually done by a court of law 20 plus years ago, finding that literally intelligent design was trying to use deceptive strategies to hide what they had been doing to try to promote religion in classrooms. And Stephen Meyer is part of the exact same organization that wrote a document back in the 90s called the Wedge Document, which basically said, we are going to invade and try to change the culture and destroy materialism, and we're going to use arguments about evolution and intelligent design as the wedge to completely change culture and institute more theocratic style regimes. So I'm just letting you know, when you do the deep dive, you're going to realize there is about 30 years of backstory before you even get to that pseudoscience documentary.
But even if he hadn't done a thing, even if he just appeared on the scene today, he has no expertise, no credentials, no study, no reason for anybody to pay attention. There's no reason for anybody paying any more attention to his thoughts on consciousness than it is to pay attention to Dr. Erica's thoughts on skepticism.
So you're saying that when I do the deep dive, that he hasn't written any papers that have been peer-reviewed? Because that would be what I would look for. I would look for peer-reviewed, published.
How can you
research.
have peer review if you're not a peer?
Well, that's why I say I do have to look into his credentials. I hear you. I hear you. You're saying that maybe I'm going to find out some, because I do believe in evolution. I don't believe in, my politics do lean left. I don't believe in religion in schools and that kind of thing. So, but like I said, I can't have a conversation with you about that because I haven't done my research on it.
Well, when you do your research, what qualifies you to do it? What qualifies you to do any research on this?
Just because, I was taught the scientific method. I wouldn't have been able to get accepted into medical school if I wasn't taught. I have a BS and an MS. Does that
qualify you to do research on this?
It qualifies me to, I'm using research very, very loosely. It qualifies me.
Yes, you
to
are.
Go look, see if the guy has any published,
am I just as qualified or more qualified than you are to look into this?
I don't, to tell you the truth, all I know is that you are deep into the philosophy. I only had one course in philosophy in college, but you are heavy into the philosophy, but I don't think you have a philosophy degree. You were a theist at one time before you became an atheist. But why can't just an average person off the street look into things? That's where I disagree with you guys sometimes. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I just
fucking agreed with you, and you're telling me you disagree with me. You can look into it all you want. The thing is, do you have any expertise in having a good justification to think that whatever conclusion you reach is likely correct?
Yeah, just being a human on the planet, I'm going to look and see.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dr. Erica, you're wrong. Just being a human on the planet does not mean that you have any sort of detectable likelihood of getting the correct answer after going out and looking at what Dr. Stephen Meyer says about anything. If that were the case,
you say you do, and you say you do.
No, I didn't say a thing. I asked a question.
Yes, I understand.
I tell you what the difference is between us. I understand logic. I understand fallacies. I understand skepticism. I understand the burden of proof. I understand test procedures. I have worked with skeptical organizations to test claims of the supernatural. I understand the philosophy behind whether or not there can be any sort of way to detect the supernatural. All of this stuff. I understand the difference between saying I don't dismiss personal stories and saying I accept the personal stories as evidence for what they're pointing to. There's big differences here. I understand the difference between saying there's a whole bunch of real scientists looking into this and saying everybody on the fucking planet for the next 500 years could look into it and it wouldn't make it believable. It's about the evidence, not the number or qualifications of people doing it. That is a fallacy. When there's evidence for any of the things that you're interested in, that's the time to believe them and not a second before. I'm not sitting here saying don't go look into near-death experiences. I'm saying we have looked into them and they have been found wanting. I'm saying the James Randi Educational Foundation had $1 million prize where we tested, not we, because I didn't work with them, but I was there. They tested supernatural claims of paranormal claims of proposed supernatural effects repeatedly, and nobody could pass a preliminary test. We have tested psychics. We have tested dowsers. We have tested ghosts. We have looked for chupacabras and everything else. All of these things I have spent my entire life looking into the ways in which we look into them. And even with that, I'm not any kind of an expert, but you, in every sentence that you have said about this personal research you're doing and what you're interested in, you've demonstrated you don't understand any of that. And I don't know how you can think you can reach a good conclusion if you definitely do not understand any of the things I just talked about.
Well, that's your point of view. I want to hear the other side.
The other side is also full of liars.
Why would I take one side? And like I
Dr.
said,
Erica, what if one side has all the evidence and the other side is actually propaganda filled with liars?
I'm not capable of debating with you guys. All I call in was just to get.
That's a fact. I just listed a whole bunch of things you don't understand, and when I asked you about it, you said, "Well, what? That's just your opinion. What if I want to hear from the other side?" Okay, the other side says you do understand all of that, and the other side is wrong.
Okay. Well, until I look into it, I'm not going to say one way or the other. I have to look into it myself. And
just
like
to help
I said,
you also speed up in some of your earlier questions.
I cannot debate. You
I'm not bringing up a debate point, but Dr. Erica, I wanted to also let you know I did look on Stephen Meyer's website, and you know how many peer-reviewed articles he shows that he has published?
No, I do not.
Goose egg. Zero. Nada. You go on there, the only articles he shows are blog posts. The only books that he has published on the science are not peer-reviewed books. He literally does not do peer-reviewed science. He has never done peer-reviewed science. And when he does try to describe the science, and you can go and check the blogs out there that have gone through and eviscerated him and pointing out that he is, at the very least, not correctly representing the data. And that has been true for decades.
So that's what I'll find out when I look into it for myself. That's what I'll find out. I'm not.
I didn't realize. I'm sorry, Erica. I didn't realize we were taking a call from someone who just called in to say, "Hey, one of these days I'm going to go look into stuff."
No, I was just letting you know where that I do think about these things and.
No, right. I don't need book reports, and I don't need you to tell me what your plans are for the future. I don't need you to tell me what your plans are for the future, because I don't respect your methodology or understanding or your ability to have a conversation on it. You have absolutely nothing of substance to offer now. You have just wasted a bunch of time to say one of these days I might look into it, and I don't have any sort of understanding that would lead me necessarily to the right conclusion. So I've just called a blob. Blah, 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 blah.
I specifically told your screener and you that I cannot, I'm in no position to debate you guys.
I'm sorry, did I say you needed to debate me? No, I didn't. I said you called to just blah, 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 blah. You called to ask me about once saved, always saved.
and that's all and that was real. I said I only have.
I
one
wish we'd have
simple
stopped
question.
then. Good night.
You're right. Thank you.
Wow. I want to look into Stephen Meyer. Okay. Nobody would. You didn't have to call it and tell me you were going to look into Stephen Meyer. I would have never known. But
I'm actually a little bit surprised when I looked. I thought Meyer had at least written a pseudo paper, but no, apparently he can't even be bothered to do that. So even more
I
bottom of the
think
barrel than I thought.
I think he has than some of the other Discovery Institute people have, but also they created their own journals so that they could do their own peer review.
Yeah.
But it's like.
Yes, I just recently rewatched a video from Professor Dave. Professor Dave explains on James Tour and his paper on abiogenesis being impossible. And yeah, it's a journal basically set up to do one thing, and that's to promote anti-evolution. And it makes atrocious assumptions that high school students should have been able to recognize.
I mean, I get it. This is just going to be mean, and somebody's going to get mad that I did it. I don't care. You're a doctor. You're a doctor of internal medicine. You presumably treated patients. Whatever process you went through to figure out and to diagnose a condition, and then to determine what the best course of treatment was, that's the sort of understanding that should be second nature to a 68-year-old retired doctor. And that is the same methodology that you would use to determine, hey, is there anything to this near-death experience? The answer is the answer is not no, near-death experiences are bullshit, as far as I can tell. The answer is we haven't established that there's actually a there. There's some curious things. There's some interesting things. There are people looking into it. But what we can talk about are things like what we know about the brain, what we know about the mind, what we know about whether or not there's any likelihood of a soul. I don't think there's any likelihood of a soul. I don't think there's any likelihood of an afterlife. I don't think there's any good evidence that consciousness can exist outside of a body, outside of a physical body. But as soon as somebody has evidence for that, I'll buy into that just like everything else with evidence. But the category was, hey, do I still have a chance with this once saved, always saved? Because I'm a deist, but I don't actually know what a deist is, and I got the deist thing wrong. Actually, all I mean is I think there could maybe be something out there, and I'm just looking, and I don't dismiss people's personal experiences. You know what? Neither do I. I dismiss the conclusions they have about their personal experiences when those conclusions are not supported by the facts and evidence. And I don't dismiss them in the sense of that's wrong. I dismiss them in the sense of I can't accept that. There's a difference between saying I am not convinced that this is true and saying I am convinced this is false. Those are two different things. So depending on, what you're talking about, I might be sitting here forever going, I'm not convinced that's true. There was a call earlier on the show with Seth and Promise. And the caller was desperately wanting to guide the conversation in a particular way. And the problem is the caller was asking the wrong questions. And he's like, do you believe it's possible that a God exists? And it's an annoying question. And it's especially annoying for me sitting here watching other people, because the answer is no, I am not convinced it is possible for a God to exist, but that does not mean that I'm convinced it's impossible that a God exists. Possibility needs to be demonstrated. That something should be a candidate explanation needs to be demonstrated. And the fact that I'm not convinced of possibility doesn't tell you whether or not I think it's impossible. So you've already started by asking the wrong question. What you wanted to ask is, are you convinced that it's impossible? Have you ruled this out as a possibility? Anyway, we have theists.
Hoorah.
Here we go.
Okay.
Speaking of, this is Aleem who called in earlier with the contingency type argument. So Aleem, make sure that we have the background noise off and that we're probably not going to deal with planes. But how you doing?
Hello, can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm in my room. I did listen to the call earlier, and yeah, you're right. There's a lot of birds.
So your argument is a contingency argument, but you're calling it something else. So what
Correct.
is it that you are arguing? Would it be fair? Because let me just tell you if I got this right off the bat.
Sure.
Reality, according to you, is contingent, and there must be one non-contingent thing, and that's God. Is that accurate?
Reality is contingent. I would say yes, sure. Yes,
the universe,
yes.
the real universe that you and I experience is what I'm referring to as reality, not just the limits of our experience, but everything that we could potentially, if there's a planet on the other side in a different galaxy that you and I haven't seen or interacted with, it's still there. This reality, the normative use of reality, you're saying it's contingent and that there must be a non-contingent thing, and that's God. All I want to know if that was accurate.
Yes,
if not, go ahead.
Yes, sir. That is accurate.
How do you know this reality is contingent?
As in our universe?
I just defined it for you just a second ago.
Sure. Absolutely. So the reality that you're talking about contains stuff. So our universe contains, galaxies, black holes, and the like. Our universe will never be our universe if those things do not exist. And so it is dependent upon its parts for it to exist.
That's
in the same way
that's not what contingent means.
Also, I don't think that's true. I can imagine a universe with no planets in it, and it could still exist logically okay.
Sure, but it has parts, does it not?
Having parts does not make the universe contingent on its parts. It just becomes descriptive. I could come up with a universe that is just somehow a monad, but I know that word has some other meanings here in our audience. Nonetheless, I don't follow at all that universe has parts, therefore the universe in totality is contingent. In fact, that's a bit of a logical fallacy to say that the parts tell you something about the whole in that sort of way. There's I forget the exact term. Matt, you know better than me, the logical fallacy here.
Yeah.
Can I present it in a different manner, perhaps?
It's a fallacy of composition, but go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's say that what we have in this very moment for what the universe that we have, it contains all these different parts, right? It contains a bunch of different galaxies and the black holes and the like, and everything that's within it. If we were
don't understand why what it contains is relevant, but yes, I will agree with you. We are in a reality that contains things.
Correct. So this is our universe in that very moment that we're looking at it. In the next moment, were we to remove, say, one black hole, that universe that we now have is not the same universe that we had before. It is
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because this is basically the ship of Theseus thing. First of all, I don't know how you could remove a black hole, but yes, if you could just remove a black hole, the universe would be different. But the universe is constantly changing. The universe is different now than it was when I began this sentence.
Correct.
What difference does it make?
This is why I'm saying that realities are dependent upon anything that's atemporal. Like I don't believe any reality is dependent on anything temporal. Like we're not dependent on anything before us. I mean, we are, because obviously we're dependent on our parents, but what really makes us what we are now in any moment is everything that's contained within us.
I need to also point out, if you're bringing in time, that we see things change within the universe over time, but according to things in physics like the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, for the entire universe, there actually is no time or time change. So if you look at things in totality, you don't have that time. That time does not exist on that sort of external cosmic scale. You only find time within the universe. So if we're going to go by that, the universe is atemporal in that kind of way, according to the Wheeler-DeWitt equation.
Right. I understand. My argument doesn't look at temporal. I'm looking at everything in any moment that it exists.
You were just
So
talking
if
about
I'm looking
change.
at a
That's temporal, I believe.
correct, but that's not what my argument is. I'm just affirming that these things are
Then why were you
possible if they
talking
are
about
temporal.
change?
I'm sorry. I thought I was just explaining. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay, here, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible because you get distracted and you go off on explanations that we don't need. Let's begin with the limits of our ability to explore reality are the boundaries of our universe right now, currently. Yes?
Yes.
Then let's take the universe in its totality, ignore time, ignore things within it. It's just you. Capital U, universe. Is that contingent?
Yes, sir. Because it contains parts.
How do you know it's contingent?
A contingent reality to me is any reality that is dependent upon another distinct numerically distinct reality. So, if
no, that's not how this works. Our universe, you're saying it is contingent. I'm sorry. Our universe, you're saying it's contingent. What is it contingent upon, and how can you demonstrate that?
Can I use a simpler example than a universe, like perhaps a house?
No. The universe, sure. Because the universe in this context, or maybe we should say, let's go with cosmos. The cosmos is the sum total of everything that's ever existed. Is the cosmos contingent?
Yes, because it contains things within it. And if it
that's not what fucking contingency means. We've already eliminated. Aleem, we've already eliminated that. We've eliminated time, and we have eliminated the parts. The cosmos is one thing. No. What is it contingent on?
It's one thing that is made up of other things, is it not? It's not one thing by itself.
It doesn't matter if it's made. It doesn't matter. This is the fallacy of composition. Stop going to what it's made up of. It is still the thing. From the external perspective, from an atemporal perspective, from an space-time perspective, the cosmos is what it is, and I'm asking you if it's contingent. And you say yes, and I'm saying, what's it contingent on, and how do you know?
And you don't want my answer. My answer is going to be the same every time. It's contingent.
Yes, I don't want your stupid answer that we've already rejected.
This is probably why I use the term conditioned.
May I just jump in and maybe let's try back?
I'm gonna let Aaron jump in. But I want to point out that just because you try to pretend that you have avoided contingency by coming up with a different term, conditioned, is fucking irrelevant. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to get clear on words here, because when I hear the universe is contingent, just like Matt is saying, contingent on what? To say something is contingent is that it would not exist except for other factor being there. It is contingent on my mother existing that I would exist. If my mother was never born, there's no way I would have ever been born. That's how we use this word. Now, me being made of atoms is not the thing that makes me contingent. The thing that there was some other prior object or event that had to exist for me to exist is the thing that makes me contingent on that. So now we're talking about the cosmos, the universe. If you're saying the universe is contingent, you're saying it could not exist except for something else, either prior to it or metaphysically more necessary than it. What is your justification that the universe is contingent, and what is it then contingent on?
This is not my argument.
Then we should probably use different words.
Sure. This is why I try to use the word condition, to say that it's not temporal. The dependencies are not temporal.
Aleem, listen to me. Aleem, listen to me very carefully. Reset yourself. Don't you dare fucking whine. I specifically asked you about contingent. If you had an objection, you should have made it then. I'm going to back up. We're going to rewind. We're going to pretend like none of this shit happened. Present as succinctly as possible. to Dr. Adair, whatever your conditioned argument is, without fucking whining, okay?
Yes, sir. Okay. My argument is that Dr. Adair, if I were to tell you that yes, you are correct, you are contingent on the fact that your mother had to exist, your father had to exist. You're also contingent on the fact that their parents had to exist. But can we not also say that your existence in this very moment is dependent upon your cells, upon their structure, upon your bone structure, upon your location in the cosmos, in the universe? All these things together in that very moment must be in the right, formation for you to exist. Can we agree on that or no? This is what I mean by conditioning.
No, because here's the thing. What you would call me is the collection of things I happen to be assembled of. And if you change some of the things out, I would then just be a different collection, and you would still call that Aaron. So if you took out a random cell from my body and replaced it with one just slightly different, or just rotated one of the cells in my body,
Correct.
I don't think that suddenly I'm now a completely metaphysically different being. It's just now the set of objects you point at is slightly modified. And at no point did this ever become an argument that I must now depend on some other external source for that to be the case. Pointing to things that I am made of to show that I depend on something externally does not really follow. So even if we go down this whole route, I'm just saying, already your analogy that you're going for here is going to get us nowhere, because even if we say, if you change things in the universe, you've changed the universe, that doesn't even begin to say now the universe depends on something else for its existence. So it's a complete non sequitur.
No, what I'm saying is that yes, we metaphysically called you Aaron in every moment that you exist, because this is how we look at the package. But in reality, you are not the same as you are moment to moment. Your existence is dependent on things that are in every moment that may be different. And it's not just within yourself. It's also your location on Earth, the Earth's location within the Goldilocks zone, our location within the solar system, and so on. It's
Ali,
not just within
are
yourself.
you saying that if I move
everywhere.
1 inch to the left, I'm a different being and there's no relationship between those two forms of myself? I just shifted my chair. Have I now somehow become so completely different that now we have to invoke the divine? Or can we just say it's the same basic thing and now it just has undergone some translation?
No, well, no. What I'm saying is that in the next moment that so in the first moment your chair is on one side, now you've moved an inch to the left in the next moment, that inch is a condition. It's part of the condition that makes you who you are.
No, it doesn't.
This is why you become a conditioned reality. You're not who you are if you hadn't moved that inch. You're not who you are if a cell doesn't change in your body, or if something doesn't in each moment. You're not who you are.
Also, all of this does not even begin to matter, because none of this shows that I somehow depend on anything externally by any sort of property of me internally changing, or even imagine being changed. Again, this is a complete
Is your mom coming in to check on you
about everything.
I'm not looking at the change, Aaron. I'm looking at a moment. It's an atemporal thing.
What changes from moment to moment?
No, a moment is not atemporal. You're looking at two moments.
In one moment, you are the cells that combine you. In the next moment, if something has changed, then that's who you are. You are those changed things that have changed.
That's literally
the next. But in each moment,
that what you just described cannot be. Shut up. What you just described cannot be viewed as atemporal. You are looking at two moments in time and comparing them and identifying the change. That is the exact opposite. No, but we already said that the entire universe, one thing, is the whole pack. Like everything that Aaron has ever been, every position, every atom he has ever been in, all of that whole package, we're going to just package that up and look at it as one thing, Aaron, not a bunch of things interacting, but one thing, Aaron, and that Aaron package is contingent on his parents. Let's do that same thing for the universe. What is the
I'm not
universe
doing this
conditioned on?
contingent on parent shit,
Stop
man.
saying
I'm not
no
going
when
back
I'm
in
still
time,
fucking
Matt.
talking.
I'm not going back in time. Why are you going back in time with his parents? I'm not going back in time. His parents have nothing to do with my argument. My argument is
You better
based.
calm
I'm
the
sorry
fuck
if my voice
down.
is rising.
You better
I
calm the
understand.
fuck down.
I understand.
You calm the
understand,
fuck
I'm sorry.
down.
I know I've apologized 3 times now, Matt. I apologize. Sorry. My
You did this to
argument is not
promise as
based.
well.
I know, and
I'm not-
I also I
Would
just,
you stop talking and listening and just start listening?
Sure.
There's a universe, let's say. Ignore time. All of the entirety of time is encapsulated in one thing with the universe right now. Can you get that abstract in your head?
Yes.
What is that conditioned on? That one thing.
I apologize. Are you asking what the time is conditioned on, or what the universe is conditioned
No.
on?
The universe. What is it conditioned on?
And it has a part within it that refers to time.
It doesn't matter. What is the universe conditioned on? If you're going to say it's conditioned on its parts, those are already included. However we define the universe, if we define the universe as this collection of parts, that's what the definition is. What is it conditioned on?
I really don't want to get you angry. I want to say it's conditioned on its parts. Like,
it can't be conditioned on its parts. We defined it. We defined it. We defined it as its parts.
I'm going to take his argument as is. I'm going to take it as is. Aline, let's say the universe is conditioned on its parts. Therefore, the universe is conditioned on natural things. You just blew up your theism argument. You now just made the universe contingent or conditional on more natural stuff. You've gotten us nowhere after the last 20 minutes. It's at best a non sequitur.
Well, that's not
and
the end of the argument.
An argument for naturalism.
No. So, Dr. Adair, that's not the end of the argument. We're just at the first part about.
Well, your argument kind of sucks at this point. Let's okay, Alim. Instead of us guessing at what your argument is, which you've been pretty darn bad at presenting at multiple attempts, let's just turn this into modus ponens. Give us premise 1, premise 2, conclusion, and we can see if it's at least valid.
Premise 1, a conditioned reality exists. Premise 2, and for all reality or for all of existence, the following disjunction must apply. 1, that there are only conditioned realities in all existence, or the logical contradictory of that, there is at least one unconditioned reality. Premise 3 says that the premise that there are only conditioned realities in all of reality is logically impossible. Therefore, there is at least one unconditioned reality in all of reality.
This is literally the contingency argument.
The contingency argument uses this structure, but they look at temporal dependencies. I am not looking at temporal dependencies.
No, you can do metaphysical, ontological ordering contingency.
It does not require temporal at all. So let me try this. Can you see the screen?
I'm sorry. By the way, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make this hard.
Can you see the screen?
As honestly as I can.
I don't need any more apologies. Can you see the fucking screen?
Give me a sec.
The answer to that then is no.
I can now.
Not give me a sec.
I can
the answer
now.
Is no.
I can now. I had to just put it on. I didn't want to have it in the background.
Okay. There are 2 rubber bands here, right?
That's a question to you, Aline. Do you see 2 rubber bands?
I understand. It's about a 20-second or 30-second delay. I can hear Matt.
I'll just do this. Right now, I'm holding a blue rubber band in my left hand and a red rubber band in my right hand. And now I have swapped them. How many realities is that?
1.
One reality. And so within that one reality, everything about those rubber bands, their positions, their movement, all of that together is one packaged reality.
Yes.
Okay. What is that conditioned on?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer this without.
Then you
going
don't
into,
have
like,
an argument or an
it-
understanding of your argument, because what it's
well,
conditioned
I
on.
do, but you're not accepting it. I can tell you. I can tell you, it's conditioned
Okay,
on
now you're fucking
its
lying, and now
location
you've
in.
pissed me off. How dare you? How dare you tell me that you don't have an answer to that, and then say you do, but it's my fucking
I'm
problem.
sorry. I said I
No,
couldn't
fuck
answer it
you.
because I've
But
answered it a
don't
bunch of
apologize
times.
to me more. I don't care about your fucking apology. You have a contingency argument, and you do not understand how to think of things in an abstract sense of the contingency argument isn't temporal necessarily. It can be. You can have a causal temporal argument, but you can also have a conditional temporal argument or conditional contingent argument that is atemporal. That's what Dr. Adair was trying to tell you.
Oh,
all
can I
you've
give you an
done.
example just to make that nice and
Go ahead.
concrete? I am an American citizen. That is conditional on the existence of the United States. That is not a temporal sequence. That is a hierarchical structuring.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Dr. Adair's a citizen. That's conditioned on the United States existing. Those things are conditioned on other things. We normally would just use the word contingent because they're not temporal. It just means X requires Y. How do you get to now? This whole thing is that you say there must be one reality at least that is not conditioned on any other reality, right?
Correct.
How do you know what that one reality is?
That comes from that comes from the disproving of, like, when I said in my argument, premise 3, 2.1 is false because it's logically impossible. Showing you that it's logically impossible is how I would say there has to be one unconditioned reality. It would be impossible to go search all of reality to find one. And so in order to do that, we try to logically.
How do you know there can't be two unconditioned realities?
Oh, that's an excellent question. There cannot be two unconditioned realities, because if you had two unconditioned realities, what you would have is two different things, each one having a part that would describe itself, rather a common part that would make them the unconditioned, quote unquote, unconditioned reality. And one of them at least would have a part that would be some sort of differentia. And if you have any kind of parts in any unconditioned reality, it is by definition not an unconditioned reality. Therefore, you cannot have two. It can only be one, which contains no parts.
This is going to lead you to some problems. Is God the same entity as the universe?
No.
So God is a separate entity and differentiates from the universe.
Correct.
Then he's conditional by your same logic.
Well, no, it's just different.
You just gave us that if you have differentiation, that is a contingency situation. I'm just now applying this to the Almighty and your exact same wording and logic.
Because God wouldn't be what he is without the universe.
This isn't splash and pleading, sir. What
This
I'm trying
is just
to say is
following
that
your
if
own
God
logic
is unconditioned
and your own statements. I'm sorry that you don't see the implications.
Yeah, your God is just as conditioned or contingent on the universe, according to your reasoning, as the universe is on its parts. The universe becomes a part of God.
The universe is not a part of God.
It must be.
I never
if the
once said
universe and
that.
God
It
coexist, and there can only be one thing that isn't conditioned, then the other thing that is conditioned is part of what you just in the same way that I'm a part of this universe. If you say the universe is conditioned on me and on the things inside of it, then how is a God not conditioned by the universe? Would God be the same if the universe didn't exist?
God isn't part of the universe.
Would God be the same if the universe didn't exist?
Would God be the same? Yes. If the universe existed or not, God would still be the same. It would be
then God is irrelevant
reality
to the universe, and the universe can't be conditioned on God, and God can't be conditioned on the universe. And at most now you've got to the point where you contradict yourself, and you have two unconditioned things. You have two unconditioned things. God, which is not conditioned on the universe, and then you have some other explanation for the universe, because God can't be the explanation for the universe.
I'm sorry. Your hypothetical asked me if the universe did not exist. And now you're going back to, well, now you have two different things with the universe being one of them, but your hypothetical had it not exist. Your question to me was, if the universe did not exist, would God still be the same? And I was like, yes, that's the case. And then you're like, well, the universe exists.
Be. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that can't be. I'm sorry.
But
here's two situations. Here's God that exists and God that exists with the universe. Does the addition of the universe in any way change that God that exists?
If there is a God that exists without the universe, and you said there's a God that exists with the universe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the God that exists with the universe by definition must be dependent on the God.
That's not what I asked at all. That's not even in the fucking ballpark of what I asked.
I apologize.
There's God. Listen very carefully. There's God A that exists on its own, hypothetical scenario. God A, not conditioned, not contingent. Just this God exists and nothing else exists. And then there's God B that exists with the universe. God B is non-contingent and whatever. Are A and B the same?
Yes, it would be the same God.
How can there be a God that is the same? How can there be a God that is the same as the God that created a universe and exists with the universe?
But you keep saying exist with the universe. God exists in its own, I don't know. I don't know what dimension.
Aleem, listen very carefully. God A exists as a hypothetical on its own with no universe. And God B exists with a universe that it created that is contingent upon it. And you just said that A and B are the same. And I'm saying that is a logical contradiction, because the God A cannot be the same as a God B that created a contingent universe when the God A did not create a contingent universe.
So the only difference being that God B is different from God A because God B has created. That's the difference.
I don't know if that's the only difference, but that's definitely a difference. It's the difference we're highlighting to show that those two cannot be the same.
Right. So then, well, I mean, if I'm me right now, or I'm me 10 seconds later and I let out a fart, I'm still me in both those situations. The only difference is I've let out a fart in the second one.
You were denying that for me moving over 1 inch, so this is already a bit weird.
Yeah. Your argument has just been robustly defeated multiple times using your own argument.
No, it really hasn't, but that's okay.
Yes, it really fucking has, and everybody here can see it except you.
Yeah, everybody, never mind. I'd rather not. All right, I appreciate you taking my call. I'm sorry we couldn't get anywhere, man. And I'd like to just apologize.
We got somewhere.
I know
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you can't see what's put right in front of you, but we definitely got somewhere. Your argument is self-contradictory. You don't understand contingency. You've made up conditioned, and you are making things conditioned on its parts. And yet you're saying that a God that doesn't create is identical to a God that does create, and that they are both non-contingent and unconditioned. You are devoid of any attachment to rationality right now.
I have not made up conditioned. Matt, you exist in this very moment because you're.
I didn't ask you about my
father.
exist. Why is it that you're not talking about the gods? God A exists non-contingent and doesn't create a thing, and God B exists non-contingent and creates a universe, and you say that gods A and B are the same. That is functionally impossible. Now go fart.
Okay, I think I understand.
All right.
I am aghast that you would say that. Oh.
Thank you. I needed that.
I have only got one
This is
pun in
what-
today. I feel like I'm lacking. I'm being lackluster by having only one pun per day. I gotta up my game.
Aleem had called in earlier, and it was like right off the bat, I was in chat and I'm typing, this is an argument from contingency. This is ship of Theseus. This is, it's one thing to say what he'd like to say. For those who don't understand, here's the entirety of a universe. And from within the universe, when you view things in a temporal perspective, Dr. Adair is going to shift an inch. And that's not going to functionally change the package of things that we call Dr. Adair. It will change certain, but things are changing all the time. There's stuff going on, no matter how hard you try to stay still, stuff in your body is still moving. Atoms are still doing what atoms do, molecules and everything. So there's constant movement, there's constant change. And already he has a problem. Yes, I know that philosophically we can do this. When he tries to divide things up into moments, there is no moment. There is no, T0 where you can freeze frame the universe. And if you could, which you can hypothetically, let's freeze frame it and move it forward, one unit, one arbitrary unit. It doesn't matter whether that unit is a picosecond, Planck time, or 55 billion quadrillion years. Doesn't matter how much you move it forward. There's going to be change. To say that this is the same universe as it was previously only means, in the sense that we're talking about it, that this is the same package of things when viewed externally, atemporally. Not that it was the same in this instant as it was in some other instant. In 1969, I was very different than I am now. But from the universal perspective, I'm still this package of things, this ship of Theseus. We change the definition of what the ship is every time we replace a part. We change the definition of what's this package of things that's Matt, what's this package of things that's Aaron. Every instant, we are refining the definition as it's happening. He'd like to say that each of those is some identifiable individual reality that is all, that the universe is contingent on all these moments. We tried to say, Aaron tried to say, let's do this atemporally. And I was like, yes, let me dumb it down a little bit. We'll take the whole universe and look at all of it from its beginning till whenever. Just take it as a package. Just take it one thing. This is why you work with propositional logic, syllogism. You get everything down to where you've got one thing, because you can talk about the one thing. And it doesn't matter if the universe you're talking about lasts for a picosecond or a billion seconds. It doesn't matter whether it has life in it or not. It doesn't matter anything about the internals of how it works. The universe is the universe. And when you look at the entire package, that package is either contingent on something external. This was the point Dr. Adair kept making that was great, which is external, because I don't think I said the word once, but external as opposed to internal, because now you're fallacy of composition area. He doesn't like that because he wants to say that it's conditioned on the things in it, because this moment is different from the last moment. But God is the thing he views as unchanging, which, I think you hit on one or two problems with that. Like, how do you create something atemporally? How can God do something if he's unchanging? The act of doing something changes God, because in one instant, it was the God that hadn't done this. And in another instance, it's the God that had done this. And we tried to do all that. And then we got to, okay, here's God A, non-contingent, and God B, same God, creates a universe. is it the same God? It can't be, because this God didn't do that. It's a violation of identity. But
I don't think I brought up how does something atemporal do something temporally, which itself is definitely a big philosophical problem. I just threw back at him and said, hey, if you're saying here's God and here's the universe, but you're saying that the uncontingent reality has to be undifferentiable from anything else, but there's this thing different from it, well, then you just basically made God contingent by your own argumentation. And he just straight up denied his own logic because, well, the house of cards fell in his face.
it's one of those things where, Aleem, if you're still out there listening, I know right now you're not, I don't have the slightest interest in what anybody's saying or whatever. Try again. But also don't. And I'm going to explain what I mean really quickly because we got to get on some other callers. Keep looking, but you have this notion that there must be a God, and you've tied yourself up in knots trying to tweak an argument. Oh, here's a problem with the contingency argument, but if I tweak this and I change the language to conditioned, that's what contingency means, essentially. X is conditioned upon Y. X is contingent upon Y. Instead of doing it that way, explore the world. Be ready to say, I don't know. And instead of trying to find an argument or a better argument for a particular thing, find better evidence that leads you to justify why you would need to put together an argument. And the better evidence you find, the less complicated your argument needs to be. Because we were asking for if A, then B, if B, then C, A, therefore C. You know, we were looking for that. And it was, no, in 3, 2, in this. The better evidence you have, the less work you got to do. All right. We got a couple of atheists. And Dustin's been on hold for an hour and a half wanting to ask you a question. So I'm going to make myself irrelevant and run down and get a drink. Dustin's calling from, what is that? Massachusetts?
Mississippi.
Oh, no, MS, that's Missouri.
Mississippi.
Mississippi, I apologize. Oh, that's right. Missouri is MO.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Missouri's MO. I'm from Missouri.
No,
I got that one right. Hey, Dustin, I'm going to step away, but you didn't need me. You wanted Aaron anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, Aaron, I just wanted some questions from you, Dr. Aaron, about James Gates. And so I found myself, I'm a skeptic, but I found myself kind of allowing me to kind of think about simulation theory a little bit. I was curious what your opinion was on James Gates' findings of error correcting code in what was it, string theory and what supersymmetry. I was just curious what your opinion was on that, and maybe if you could expand a little bit about like the evidences to me, I use that term very loosely here, but error correcting code and also the double slit experiment, the way that light behaves almost seems like it's as if it was in a video game, right? If it's not being used, it's lower rendering, kind of. I was just curious what an actual, someone who's in astrophysics, what their opinion was or what their thoughts were about that.
Okay. So first off, I need to caveat this right at the front. I do no research in superstring theory, so I do not know the details of Professor Gates's arguments and his work there. So I have to discuss what's going on in ignorance of those technicalities. Superstring theory is well outside of the stuff that I work on. Nonetheless, because this stuff is based on both string theory and something called anti-de Sitter space, which is a cosmological model. This becomes a problem when you say this is somehow describing reality and that fundamental reality has error code in it, because we don't know if string theory is true. We definitely don't know superstring theory is true. The difference between the two, superstring theory also requires something called supersymmetry to be true. And thus far, we have no empirical evidence of that to be the case. We had one of the things that was promised at the Large Hadron Collider was that we were going to be able to start detecting supersymmetric particles, and we haven't. So that's at least a little bit of evidence that supersymmetry is not going to be that great. So already, this is based on a mathematical paradigm that is not actually robustly demonstrated to show what our universe is like. So that's already one problem. Secondly, that this also uses anti-de Sitter space, or ADS, and our universe isn't that. In ADS, this requires a universe with no matter in it and a negative cosmological constant, which is pretty much the exact opposite of our universe, which has matter in it, it looks like a positive cosmological constant, and is very far away from that sort of setup. So a lot of that work there to say, here's what we see in superstring theory in ADS, we have to then say, this does somehow, some way translate back to the universe we actually live in. And that's yada, yada, yada over some really important premises, to put it mildly. So just from the get-go, to say this is showing that reality has error-correcting code is, I think, highly overblown. Until we actually even show string theory is the theory of everything, this is just not a justified claim to even start making. As for the error code stuff itself, again, I don't know the details, but one thing that I understand when it comes to error correction code is that it's basically to say that there is redundancy in the information out there, that if you lose some of the information, you're still able to pretty much reconstruct what's going on. In the same kind of way that if you get a staticky message over the walkie-talkie, but you hear just enough words that you can fill in the gaps to what the person said, that's kind of what is being meant when we talk about error correction code. Is there enough other background information to help you reconstruct the full message? Again, I don't know the details here, but to me, this might sound like just something in the nature of there just being a whole lot of stuff in the information out there that it allows us to reconstruct things that doesn't require that. I'll also note it's a little bit weird because when we talk about error correction code, why do we have error correction code? It's because we're building these physical computers and there's all this sort of stuff outside our computers that can send accidental signals into the wires that can screw up the messages. How do you do that for something that's like external to the entire universe? That's going to require some unusual fiddling with the physics there, that there are these other computers that also are not in electromagnetically quiet places to do their operations. And we have to actually institute this extra fix on there to protect that. And why would you even need to do that? I'm not really sure. So there's a whole lot of premises here and other points that I just don't think will even get you to we live in a simulation. It could just be that there are other fundamental things in our reality that just introduce redundancy into things. And I'm thinking, for example, in one of the interesting findings about how light travels from point A to point B. This is kind of weird, but it's something that Feynman shows, is that light doesn't travel from point A to point B in a straight line. Light actually takes every single possible path, including the physically impossible ones, and you sum up all of those effects together, and you get the effect of light taking the path that is the fastest, the easiest, what have you, from going from point A to point B. So I'm just thinking, doesn't that also introduce its own redundancy, that if you just like lost half of the paths, it would still average out to the same overall effect? I'd have to do that rigorously to see if that's true, but I'm just wondering, is this redundancy that error correcting code is found, if it's just the same sort of thing you'd expect from anything quantum in general? Again, I'm hand waving here, I don't know the details, but I would not jump from redundancy in nature to aliens built the universe or something like that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's about as succinct as an answer I could have expected, to say that it's basically an unfounded premise to begin with. Great. I guess the thing that's always kind of pulled me was, when you ask those big questions of kind of, and you shouldn't ask those questions without evidence, obviously, but the brain wanders. And mine often goes toward like simulation a large part because of the question. I don't know who said it, but I've heard it before. If you can imagine a world where we could potentially create a simulation that was one for one, what we experience now in the real world, then that would logically be the best explanation for the world we're living in now. And that's always kind of gripped a hold of me, just like.
I don't think I followed very well. Are you saying, could you tell the difference between a simulated universe and one, or could you tell the difference between reality and a perfectly simulated universe? Is that what you're saying?
So I guess what I'm saying is, if you look at, and I mean, obviously, think if humans are allowed to exist, by the cosmos or whatever, by ourselves for thousands of years, right? If technology is allowed to continue to grow the way that it is now, right? Could you imagine a situation where we could actually create a simulation of the universe, or maybe not even the universe, the galaxy? If so, then that would theoretically be the most plausible suggestion of where everything came from. That always kind of gripped me. You guys are greater minds than mine, so please dissuade me of that idea.
Okay. Well,
does that make sense?
First
Did I
off,
explain it?
I think I followed, so I'll just back up a bit on a few things. So one, there's an interesting thing when it comes to physics and computations, that if you wanted to build a perfect simulation of the entire universe, you would have to build a computer at least as large as the universe to do all the computations. So you actually don't gain anything by explaining the whole universe as a simulation, because your simulator has to be at least as large as the universe itself. That's kind of a wild thing, but that's one of the consequences from the physics of computation. Now, if you then were just say, okay, we're just going to have some sort of simulation and it's just a planet, I guess then that would mean that everything beyond a certain border has to then be fake in some way, that you basically have a projection of everything beyond a certain point. So that way you can actually do the computations in something smaller than a universe. Is that what you're getting at then?
Well, not necessarily. I guess, yeah, the big hurdle you'd have to get over is the law of thermodynamics, right? That you couldn't create something that consumed as much or more energy than the energy you have that it took to create it. So, yeah, that is something. But I don't know, man. I see video games and the way that AI even now can simulate actual human conversations. I know that is such a small thing, but if you think how far we have to go potentially. I don't know. Will we plateau? Probably, but it's just a thought
what
that
I'm
I've
saying
had
though
that's
is
circulated in my head.
Yeah, the thing is, like, what I'm saying about like the size of the computer, this isn't like a engineering problem. This is actually a fundamental physics problem. This is like the nature of computation problem. So you can't say, well, if we build a better GPU or we sprinkle some quantum onto it, it doesn't resolve the problem. The problem is computation itself as a physical process.
Yeah, that's fair. There's no computer in the world I could ever imagine that would be able to do anything like that. No single computer or even combination or collection of computers. So that is fair.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other hand, if we are a simulation and we're some kid's high school laboratory project in their computer, first off, again, their computer now needs to be as big as a universe. There are definitely giants among us, aren't there?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could I pose a question? I don't know if you guys have a theist on the call and you want to jump to that or not, but I did have a question for Matt. If you'd spare me the time.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know your opinion on. Do you feel like this movement of Christian nationalism in America is potentially turning more people maybe away from agnosticism and more toward atheism?
I don't get that impression, but I don't have any way to judge, because we had data with a trend towards people leaving religion. What I think we're seeing more of is more stupidity, more irrationality, and more woo. And I don't necessarily, I mean, I have no, maybe atheism is stupid. I'm just saying that minds aren't changing based on the criteria that I would have expected and that I think they ought to, which is evidence-based rational arguments. And I think some people are moving away from fundamentalism as they see the sort of Project 2025 fascist evangelical, this is why you get like James Tallarico and John Fugel saying, both guys I really admire and respect, even though I think on a religious front, I think they don't have a leg to stand on. They're good people doing good things, and they've got their quirky version of Christianity that it's dubious as to how close to the Bible it is. And I'm not like, I'm planning on reaching out to Tallarico because I'm in Texas. And the email that I'm planning to send him, which he may never see or reply to, is you've already got my vote. It would be hard to lose my support. There's probably no good idea for you to sit down and have a conversation with me. And yet I'd like to make the case for us to do a quick live podcast to talk about
that'd be great. That'd be
your
amazing.
policies and your views from the standpoint of an atheist voter, because I want to see how he reaches out to leftists and secularists and also to the atheists who are like, I don't want to vote for no Christian. And I'm like, you better. You fucking better, because if it's your best option, if it's, Westboro Baptist or James Tallarico, those aren't even the same. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And so I don't know if people are moving towards atheism. And honestly, I'm an atheist and I'm arguing against religion, but I'm doing it on behalf of skepticism and humanism. I don't really care if the world's getting more atheist. I care whether or not it's getting more rational and more decent. And it's neither at the moment, as far as I can tell.
That's fair. Yeah, I didn't really have much more. Thank you, guys. That's I wish I could offer more of a combative, tone for you guys, but I really can't. I think I see eye to eye with you guys on most things. Thank y'all for taking the time for my call, and thank you, Dr. Aaron, for your very succinct explanation of my question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dustin. By the way, somebody in chat says, is this live? I thought Tallarico lost. No? Are you another person that looked at the Republican primary results and thought that was the main election? Because that seems to be a trend that's going on. But
Yeah.
Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, my friend Emmett Meta made a post where somebody was like, oh, I thought there was supposed to be a blue wave, and they posted a picture of a map and it was all red. And it's because it was the Republican primary.
Yeah, 2 shades of red for the 2 Republicans running in the Republican primary for Republicanness. Imagine that, a Republican won the Republican primary.
I know. And it was the Republican that was, from the statistics I've seen, the best one for me to win, because John Cornyn is far more reasonable and less MAGA than Paxton is. And so Paxton wins out. And in the polling stuff, Tallarico outperforms against Paxton versus Cornyn. So it's probably the best outcome so far. Somebody in Super Chats, hey, Billy, says, another person in Texas, please tell them that voting is a utilitarian act, not a moral one. The choice is Paxton or Tallarico. There's one that is 10,000% better than the other. It's not even close. I would argue that it may, in fact, be a moral act as well. That you may have, and I've recently changed my view to adopt a more moral, realist, objective moral position, thanks to a conversation with Ian. And I've got a video coming out about that. But to the extent that you might have a moral obligation to vote, I'm not necessarily, I like the fact that it's a utilitarian act, of course, Billy, but I also think it might be a moral one.
Especially considering if you were to not vote and Paxton were to actually win. My goodness, I'm trying to not be overly political, but my goodness, the fact that even his own party has basically called out for his level of corruption let him have even more power levers cannot be good for the state of Texas, let alone the United States.
Yeah. We got 2 more callers here. We could maybe do, it's 9:00. We could maybe do another hour if there are theists calling in. So what I'm going to do is we'll take the 2 atheist callers we've got, and we'll be judging if we get actual theists calling in that want to defend something. Probably no more arguments from conditionals tonight, because I probably run my limit on those. But if we get more theist callers, we look forward to taking those, because I don't want to quit. Because here's the thing. I'm gonna get to you, Sean. Hang on just a minute. We're gonna get to you next. I promise. Without going into details, Arden had surgery. Everything went fine. She's recovering, but she's on bed rest and not here. And for those who don't know, we run an exotic animal business. We keep and breed 22 species of snakes and 10 species of lizards. And that means I also keep and breed a variety of rodents, and occasionally we get bugs and whatever else. But it's just the 2 of us. And that's a lot of work. Like there's literally a rack of 20 snakes right there. And that's a small part of the collection. What that means is every Monday is the day that I have to go to the rat facility and take care of that. And normally it's 2 of us, and I'm doing it on my own. So I worked all day today, got showered up, shaved, made myself as pretty as I can for you people, because I try to look nice for you. And then tomorrow I'm going to have to go do some more, and I'm going to have to continue doing it on my own over the next few weeks while she recovers. She's doing great. I know she's chimed in on several shows. We're overjoyed and happy. There's nothing for anybody to be concerned about. Thank you for your thoughts on this. But I'd rather sit here and take God calls than go contemplate rats. And if we stop, I'm going to have to go start planning out tomorrow, and I don't want to do that. So somebody call in and explain why we should believe in your God. That would be great. Also, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I don't want to put Lux on the spot, because Lux isn't, like, I tried to walk down the hall a minute ago when I went to get a drink. I tried to walk to Arden's office to say something, and I was like, oh, she's not here. But Lux, are you there, and do you have the schedule that you could run over?
Uno momento, por favor.
There we go. Lux is outstanding, and not to slight it at all, considering I tend to work with Arden, but I'm a creature of habit. And when I saw you had that call, Aaron, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna go get a drink. And I grabbed my cup and I walked out, and I was like, oh, I should tell Arden, see if she needs a drink too. No, she's not here.
I'm also just now thinking, if you have all these rats, does that make you the Rat King?
I am Rat Emperor at this point, I think.
Okay, just because I'm remembering a line from one of the characters from Stephen King's The Stand. The Rat King forgive you this time. That could be your new tagline.
I will be that's not true. I've never fully read a Stephen King book. I have seen several of his movies. I like the guy. And I use one of his books in a magic trick in my show. So I use the actual printed copy of The Shining. So
I was going to say, what is it?
Does that count as a pun? Do you get another one right there?
I think so. I think I get a cookie for that one.
There we go. All right. If Lux has a schedule, we'll do that. If not, we'll go on to other calls.
Yeah, I posted it in the After Dark chat.
Oh, I thought you were just going to read it off. All right, here we go. Tonight's Sunday show is myself and Dr. Aaron Adair. Tomorrow is Skeptalk. Aaron, you're back with Justin, right?
Oh, yeah. If you're sick of me, I'm sorry. It keeps on happening.
Oh God, no, that's going to be awesome. Uh, Genuinely, like I love being the weakest link on the line in almost every circumstance. I I tune in, I watch, I learn. It's just awesome stuff. There's a calling it now at 2 p.m. with Jimmy Snow and Promise, and uh, Alyssa's doing. Oh, hold up on that. There's an episode of Chewed Gum on Tuesday at 6 p.m. with Taylor and Alyssa. And Wednesday night is the hang up, but I won't be here. But I don't slack on you. If you can't have me, let's be honest, you can. You can have me for next to nothing. But when I'm unavailable to be here, I'm going to bring in this time Justin and Dr. Blitz. I mean, what could go wrong? I mean, you're just going to get my show's better when I'm not on it. Don't you dare agree with me. Should be no. Nobody's allowed to agree with that. That's probably true. And on the Transatlantic Call-In Show this Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central, Luxander and a Riverboat Jack. We have shows most days and plenty of opportunities for you to call in and learn stuff and ask questions and get help. For example, Transatlantic Call-In Show, if you've ever been called transphobic and you don't know why, or you're proud of it, you can call in and get some explanation or try to defend it. You can call into the various shows covering political stuff, covering religious stuff, tons of opportunities. But Sean's been on hold for an hour and a half, and I promise we get to Sean next. So Sean from Kentucky wants to talk about predeterminism. How are you? And thank you for your patience waiting as I blab.
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Matt, and I'm so glad it's the two of you. You're actually the one that sent me on this particular rabbit hunt, and Dr. Adair, I understand, is the man that can answer this question for me.
Perfect.
I think that's a bit presumptive that I know how to answer anything, but we'll try.
Well, I mean, you can blame Forrest for making that promise, but he said you should be able to help me here. So I do want to start by saying I am not an expert here. I doubt this will be very long, but I realized that I had been walking around with a lot of beliefs about reality that I didn't really have solid justification to believe. And I had thought that the universe was predetermined, but when I was looking into research on quantum mechanics, my understanding is that the current interpretation is that they are truly random as far as what they decide, do. So it can't have been predetermined because there is nothing governing their actions. So that tore predeterminism to shreds, but I'm curious what your thought on this is.
So I can only give you some partial answer because this revolves around a lot on the interpretation of quantum mechanics, and there is not a consensus amongst physicists. And the view that is probably the most common among physicists about how to interpret quantum mechanics, I think, is at best wrong. The version that is taught in the textbooks that goes back to Niels Bohr, so it gets called the Copenhagen interpretation because Bohr was a person from Denmark, from Copenhagen, or Copenhagen, if I think is the more authentic pronunciation. But either way, that one is more about that there's a wave function and it collapses when you observe it, and that has been very messy to untangle. And honestly, people have misunderstood one of the best arguments against it from Erwin Schrödinger with Schrödinger's cat. The whole idea that the cat is both dead and alive until you observe it. That wasn't Schrödinger saying, look how cool quantum mechanics is. That was Schrödinger writing, look how fucking stupid this interpretation of quantum mechanics is. And he left.
I've been trying to say that.
Yeah, funny enough, Schrödinger then actually left physics and then started researching in biology and did some preliminary work that kind of led to, I don't want to say like the discovery of DNA, but was basically describing what DNA would have to be to hold genetic information, and it'd be a non-repeating crystal. And he was, right, at least in the broad strokes about those things. So, when you're a genius in one place, you can tend to point the genius in other directions and still make progress. Nonetheless, if events in quantum mechanics are like truly random, depend on nothing else, and all that is argued to this day. Now, some of the possible interpretations have been limited. In fact, one of the more recent Nobel Prizes was about the the weirdness of quantum mechanics when it comes to entanglement, and this issue about an issue that Einstein brought up, that when you can have two particles that are entangled, but you can have them very far away, that you observe one, it automatically changes the state or defines the state of the other, even if that requires the quote unquote signal going faster than the speed of light. It ends up making there are some ways to make sure that it doesn't like completely violate everything Einstein knew, but he did point out and said, "Hey guys, that's weird. Don't just paper over that." um, and because of these experiments showing that this quantum realness is real, it's probably the case that we can't say there's some sort of hidden local variable that can explain what's going on, which makes things look more consistent with the, hey, it's completely random. But there are other completely deterministic ways of interpreting quantum mechanics, like in many worlds. All the possible worlds exist, and so the whole system is deterministic. You don't happen to know which of those many worlds you are in, but they all do exist. And the Schrodinger equation itself, funny enough, is a completely deterministic equation. If you look at the math, it's like, hey, there's nothing random in the math itself. You can calculate the evolution of the Schrodinger wave equation any amount of time in the future and past with no trouble. So a lot of this ultimately is going to come down to which version of quantum mechanics do you think is right, and have at least 100 other physicists tell you either you're wrong or it doesn't matter, shut up and calculate. so this so what I'm getting at ultimately is we do not have a solid answer. I would probably tell you that I think many worlds is our best current interpretation of quantum mechanics. It's deterministic ultimately, but in the moment, you can't possibly tell what's going to be the outcome of any sort of quantum experiment. So, for practical purposes, it's random. You have that randomness that you can't perfectly predict what's going to happen in a particular quantum event, but also it's the case that you can still talk about things in bulk happening. Doesn't matter how quantum the universe is. The Earth takes 365 and a quarter days approximately to go around the sun once. Observing the double slit experiment isn't going to change that.
That is fair. I understand that in broad strokes, that on a moment-to-moment basis, it doesn't particularly matter which interpretation happens to win. But when it came down to, the particular claim I was investigating was that our interpretation that we can't measure these things without interacting with them sounded like an equipment limitation, not like physical limitation. And when I investigated that claim, it said that would violate reality based on Schrodinger's equation.
Based on Schrodinger or the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, but yeah, it is not an engineering limitation. It is a physics limitation that you cannot actually define the position and momentum of a particle to arbitrary precision. There's actually a limit on that, and it's the fundamental wave nature of particles that doesn't allow that. So it is baked in to the physics. It's not just we need to hire more engineers. Hire more engineers. I have no problem having more science and engineers in the world, but that's not going to make the problem go away. And no, you can't invoke Star Trek technology of a Heisenberg compensator to get around the problem either. That's unfortunate technobabble.
Yeah. So my thought on this was that if it were like the particular one that seemed to agree most with my original just ad hoc explanation was Bohmian, and that has largely been, while not completely disproven, a lot of the local effects for what that could be have been either determined to be either the size of the universe or just a fundamental thing from the fabric of it, so that we could not be able to determine that it's there. that about right?
So what I would say is this, is that without almost like conspiratorial kinds of things, local variable theories like Bohmian wave theory almost certainly are not going to be consistent with our experimental results and explain quantum mechanics. That does not seem fruitful. But there is a way of having determinism and variables that are actually controlling things. It's just that you can't depend on local variables. You need global variables. And this is termed super determinism, that pretty much the entirety of what the universe is going to do is baked in to like the very fabric of nature itself. So the way that the atoms are going to split when they're passing through double slit experiments and things like that, that is not just deterministic by local variables, it's deterministic by the very earliest moment of the universe itself. This has some other consequences, like pretty much all of statistics now is ontologically invalid because when you're doing statistics and you're pulling things from distributions, we call that you have to make this assumption that they are identical and independently drawn, or IID. And on superdeterminism, that's not true because everything is determined. They're not independent draws. It's completely controlled by some other controlling variable. So you have to basically say everything's determined, but it's also determined in a way that looks identical to things that are random. So it's a universal conspiracy to control everything, to hide everything from you. And while it's at least a valid interpretation of quantum mechanics, it's one that takes on a huge amount of baggage for, I think, no explanatory gain.
Sure. That does start touching on the other part of my question. Because a lot of this, a lot of the interpretations that I had looked at, really, I'd looked at a table for like what they, follow for the different interpretations, like the observer effect and determinism, that kind of thing. It seemed like a lot of those hit an endpoint where everything is functionally random, and we don't have a way to investigate beyond that because we're stuck here. Is that not an unclosable gap that God can live in forever?
Well, I will note that on many worlds, there is no ultimate separation between the thing observing and being observed. It's all part of the same system and all explained by the same quantum wave function. So in some ways, that's one way of resolving the whole observer-observed effect. You basically say there is no such problem. There is just the wave function for everything. But where does God hide in all of this? Actually, in some ways, bringing God into quantum mechanics makes things worse for physics, because if things are supposed to behave a certain way until observed, but if God knows all things, does that mean he's observing all things? That would then basically destroy the effects of observation because everything already is observed. We wouldn't actually get any double slit effects from light or electrons going through double slits. So I don't want to say this is now empirical evidence against the existence of God, but it sure is the existence of something out there observing all phenomenon, because our physics is telling us, hey, there are things that are happening that are not being observed at those moments. I don't want to turn that into a full argument disproving the existence of the divine, but you can show that anyone who wants to invoke God to explain physics has a lot of explaining to do.
It would rip to shreds the observer effect for any of them that actually have that as part of the interpretation, but not all of them do. Some of them leave that just completely out of it. But it has been a concern because what I had thought was that as we continued to investigate quantum mechanics, we would find, the fundamental building blocks at last. Everything can be explained, at least at that level. But if we don't have an explanation for why it does the things it does, even if it is like many worlds interpretations that all possible things are occurring, we still don't have like fundamentally a way to show that. At least none that we can, we would need to be able to escape the universe to do that. So to me, that sounds like an inescapable God of the Gaps situation.
Well, I'm going to hint at this right now. I am working on some physics stuff about just possible states and how much physics can you get from just random possibilities and how much they correlate together. How much physics can you reconstruct from that? I'm not going to say that's how you escape the universe, but it is an interesting way of saying, hey, from just sheer contingency, to use a word from earlier in our conversation, from taking contingency but then being physically rigorous, how much fundamental physics can you recover? That's something I'm exploring right now. And so far, I'm surprised that it's not just gobbledygook, but to be determined if at the end of it I realize, oh, it is gobbledygook. I spent the last 6 months wasting my life. Oh well.
I'll be very interested to see that once you've completed it, because this has been on my mind, despite it not really affecting me day to day. It's just, just think about stuff while you're working. You got nothing better to do.
Sean, I'm going to interrupt to exert my executive privilege because while I've enjoyed listening to you guys, I actually have questions about quantum mechanics for Aaron. So if you're done, I will move us along.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. You mentioned Bohmian movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that David Bohm or Arno Bohm?
David, I think.
Okay. So I don't know if you're familiar. I had a friend named Mark Lowy, who was a physicist here at UT, studied while he was, Arno Bohm was his advisor, and they wrote the quantum mechanics textbook together that was used here at UT. They had the office down the hall from Weinberg. And unfortunately, they're both deceased now. Arno died in 2024, and I think Mark died in maybe 2019, 2018. I can't, maybe it was I don't remember. Anyway, he was one of my favorite people, and knew all kinds of stuff. You guys would have loved him. He wrote the book on quantum mechanics along with Arno, but the most non-committal person I've ever met in my life. It was always, well, it could be that, it could be this, whatever. I asked him a question once, and his entire face lit up, and I got a lecture for ages. I want to ask you the same question just to see your response before we move on to the next caller. Is it possible that nothing is truly random? Is truly random even something that is a plausible concept in reality? What if it's all just patterns that are too complex for us to recognize?
That's actually the kind of thing I'm exploring right now from pure randomness, but with some sort of probability distribution. Just the random alignment of things. What responses can come out from that? What sorts of mechanics can be derived even with just pure randomness? And the thing is, there's been a rather long history of randomness actually becoming something fundamental in our physics and giving us real predictive power. One of my favorite examples of this, it's from probably my most admired dead 19th century physicist, James Clerk Maxwell. You might have heard the name when it comes to like electromagnetism, but again, his corpse is a better physicist than I am. Still way much smarter. And not only did he, of course, unify electromagnetism, not a small thing in itself, but also he worked in statistical mechanics, like the foundational stuff for thermodynamics. And he basically treats the idea of, hey, what if things are just a bunch of atoms bouncing around randomly? And he just does the math and say, okay, there's just a bunch of stuff. They just bounce around. Let's going to say, just for simplicity's sake, let's say they have infinitesimal size, and when they collide, they're perfectly elastic collisions. So energy and momentum are conserved. So you just got a bunch of stuff just bouncing around. What can you possibly get from that? What does he do? He derives the ideal gas law, from stuff just randomly bouncing around. And so it's like, wow, like one of those fundamental things you learn in chemistry class. Oh, it comes literally from just stuff bouncing around randomly. Boom. Why do pistons expand when you heat things up and you realize, oh, this brings in entropy? What is entropy? Well, it's just literally randomness and states that are more likely to happen just because there's more possibilities than fewer ones. That's why things happen that way. So much of what I think have been some of the most amazing discoveries in physics have been realizing how much you can get for free from just shit bouncing around. And yeah, it's awesome.
I will say one more thing about Mark, because it makes me look. He died. He was active in the atheist community. He was critical. He was on a couple of episodes of Atheist Experience with me many years ago. He'd be in the studio, and if I couldn't get anybody else, or if he felt like it, or if he wanted, we'd do a show together. I think we did one or two. He was working on something that I couldn't possibly understand. And I was so excited because he lived 1.5 miles from me. And on rare occasions, we'd go over, his house flooded. I helped him. He kept all of his notes on paper. And so he had boxes and boxes and boxes of paper in his garage. And when his house flooded, we went over and helped move all those to our house and set them up on the floor with dehumidifiers and everything else. The guy was doing math on a clipboard every second of every day. And if he was we were at dinner or whatever, he'd entertain things with, lenses and showing refraction, and how he'd have a Mr. Science experience all the time with, here's a big 2-liter bottle filled with water and different pressures with different things in it. And you can squeeze it and get it to do different things. It's all just fun. But what he was working on at the end, he called me, and I don't know who he was working with because I don't run in those circles, but he said, "Hey, you got time to hang out?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I went over and he said, "I think we're about to have a breakthrough on an entirely different model of the Big Bang." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "My friend has proposed an alternate model, and I've been sitting here doing calculations for the last 8 months," which just is weird for me anyway. And he's like, "And so far, the math works out a little bit better than the current model." And I was like, are you telling me you're getting ready to overthrow the Big Bang cosmology? And he goes, "Eh." And then he went right back to writing. Like, God damn it. It would have been so cool. Unfortunately, my friend died and I miss him. He was a great asset to the atheist community. He was a great asset to University of Texas. He, with Arno, wrote that book. Anyway, there are lots of great people out there that you guys don't hear a thing about that are relevant to our community, but also relevant to science. And I have had an incredibly fortunate life. I'm not just fortunate to be here on the line with Dr. Adair or getting Blitzen to co-host the show and just have all these people who know so much. I would use the word blessed if it wasn't already toxic, about how fortunate I've been to have so many people who know so much more about reality than I do to fill me in and fill in the gaps so that I can at least be a passable commentator, or at least point people in the right direction. All right. Final call for today, unless we get a theist while we're on this call. Mason's calling from Texas. Pronouns are him, wants to talk about or has a question about believing unfalsifiable claims with regard to simulation theory. So thank you for letting me speak for a minute. I will go back to irrelevant.
All right. It was a while back. Aaron, it might have been you that said it, but was just saying in general, we should not believe in unfalsifiable claims. So I kind of just went through the list in my head. Matt's mentioned free will, of course, God, Russell's teapot. But simulation theory was one where I thought if we were to ever prove that it was possible, it would still remain unfalsifiable. But the odds are that we would be in one. Am I missing something there? Would it be
So-
okay to believe it after?
So here's what I remember. So like the modern version of the simulation hypothesis comes from the philosopher Nick Bostrom, and his argument
Right.
is more along the lines of if it's basically possible for a civilization to produce simulations, and the civilizations within those simulations, sorry, the civilizations
Right.
within those simulations could also build simulations of other civilizations. You then get this tree of a hierarchy of more and more simulations with just one fundamental reality. And so you would just say, from just sheer probability, oh, you're more likely in a simulation universe than the top reality, just because of the counting aspect. That's kind of his argument. I'm probably not giving it full justice, but that's kind of the intuition that's going on there. It is easier to produce simulations, therefore the number of simulations should greatly outweigh the number of realities, and therefore an observer should expect to be in a simulation, just if randomly pulling where they happen to be living out of a hat. That's kind of the idea. But of course, it's based on a bunch of premises. One, you can simulate a whole universe. Two, a civilization decides that's a worthwhile use of resources. They build a Dyson swarm, collect all the energy of a star, so that way they can make the reality TV show that is our universe. Is this actually something a civilization is expected to do? Because this is kind of a major premise behind the whole thing. If it's not something that a civilization is plausible to devote huge resources towards, the whole argument falls apart. And how do you balance the probability of a universe, or sorry, the probability that a civilization would use its resources to that end, to then the probability of, if there's even a small chance that one does, if they then produce millions of simulations and then so on, then how does that all balance out? And it's definitely not clear to me how it all goes. So here's what I would do instead. If we're going to assume the possibility we're in a simulation, and any observation we do will always be consistent with it, then we have to ask about motivations. And would a civilization of that level of power produce a world that has agents inside of it that can live and suffer and die terribly? Wouldn't it be the case that you would have to have an extremely advanced civilization with no sense of morality, that they would create simulations of the Holocaust with actual people suffering in it? And that seems outside of what's likely for an advanced civilization to do and be ethical processing. So that's the best of how I can even begin to approach that. Because yeah, once you have you can't possibly empirically falsify it. You're only left with, well, just how plausible is this? And if there's no plausible reason to think a civilization would make a universe like ours, then you just have to say, all right, then all you have is the prior plausibility, which you think is low. Therefore, you ought not to believe things that are implausible and that you can't even in principle have evidence for.
Okay, I haven't thought of it that way. To say that the morality would be the deciding factor. Well, I mean, it's just a hypothetical. From everything I've watched, I like to listen to Sean Carroll's Mindscape. It seems like creating a simulation wouldn't be possible. I mean, if it was just maybe Earth size and then everything else is a projection, maybe. But in the hypothetical situation that we proved that it was possible, would we then be warranted in believing an unfalsifiable claim?
I don't think so. Also, I need to be careful because in epistemology, there is a difference between justification and warrant, and I probably will butcher those fine definitions, and I want to be careful. But nonetheless, if there's no evidence that you can provide, how can you justify it other than the kind of thought experiments that people like Nick Bostrom have, where it basically becomes a counting aspect, which has like a physics intuition to it. Like earlier, when Matt was asking me about cool physics ideas, and I was pointing out, hey, just from sheer randomness and entropy, that you can get the basics of the laws of thermodynamics to pop out. Could it be that same kind of counting thought experiment? Oh, if there's more possibilities to be in a simulation than just pulling out of a possibility out of the hat, you're more likely to pick the more likely ones than the less likely ones. Therefore, you're more likely to be in a simulation. That would at least provide plausibility to the belief in that sort of way. That's at least a legitimate way of thinking about it. But I think that it requires so many other premises that are themselves low probability or maybe even just straight up impossible. As I pointed out, if you want to simulate the universe, you need a computer the size of the universe. Well, how do you get a computer the size of the universe fit inside somebody else's universe? That seems like it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I try to just think about it as like a world, just simulating a world, and then everything else is a projection. But if I'm going to take that reasoning and like say, because Russell's teapot, I mean, we know that it's possible for a teapot to be orbiting Earth, but we still shouldn't believe it just because it's possible. But I just feel like the simulation, once you prove it's possible, the odds of it being true go way up. And I'm trying to think of, are there any other situations where that's the case?
The other things that you can, like I say, bring into mind is, would you expect civilizations to actually produce these sorts of civilizations in simulation form if they could? And I mean, you can also bring that sort of thought process to Russell's teapot. I mean, one of the reasons the idea sounded absurd is that, well, who would, build the rocket technology to put a teapot in orbit? So you just you put in some of your background knowledge to there, and so you think, okay, there's no good reason to think initially there should be a teapot, and just because you can't go out and disprove it doesn't, become reason to believe it. But if you already have background reasons to already think that seems a bit dubious, it's not even a 50-50 proposition, then you definitely would say, hey, there's no reason to believe this, and until there is, I'm not going to buy it. But I think Matt wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. I might have missed something because I played a game of chess while I was listening to the explanation, but and I won.
All right.
So I'm not sure. I'm still thinking. I've been burning this while I was playing chess. I don't know how you could demonstrate possibility for something that is unfalsifiable, unless you're talking about like unfalsifiable in actuality and not just unfalsifiable in principle. Because I don't know how you demonstrated possibility for something like Russell's teapot. It is possible and it is falsifiable. It's just not a practical thing that you can explore. So the reason not to believe it isn't because it's not falsifiable or not possible. It's because you don't have sufficient evidence to determine that it is the case, which is completely different from just a matter of falsifiability. How could you? I guess this is for Aaron. Can you give an example of something we know to be possible, but we also know is unfalsifiable in principle?
Oh, well, it's very possible that there are civilizations in other galaxies in the universe, but there's no way with our technology that we can actually detect that. And
but that's not falsifiability in principle. That's falsifiability in actuality. I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's why I was saying there's a distinction.
Okay, well, I'm now thinking of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is possible that there is a monolith on the far side of the moon, and we just need to dig it up. That is falsifiable in principle.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you could determine something is possible and it is unfalsifiable in principle. Unfalsifiable in practical reality, that I can see. Hey, it's possible there's a diamond shaped just like my head in the Alpha Centauri galaxy, and it would just never be able to find it. But falsifiability in principle is a key aspect of epistemology and philosophy of science. I don't know how to get to X is possible. It's like saying you have a hypothesis. You can't have a hypothesis if it's not testable in principle. It doesn't have to be testable in actuality. It just has to be testable in principle. And until then, I don't know how you can say it's possible. So that's what confused me early on.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it's almost like slides into the same problem of solipsism.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mason.
Yes. Sorry. The falsifiable claim would the unfalsifiable claim would be that we are living in a simulation because we can't know. But then once we prove that it's possible because of Bostrom's odds, we would have to assume that we're one of the simulations, not with, ultimate certainty, but it would be, once we show it's possible, we got to assume that it is the case.
Yeah.
With a high degree of probability.
I'm fine with that. You're presuming that it's possible to show that it's possible while it is also unfalsifiable. You haven't done that.
I'm sorry. Say that.
Okay.
Say that again.
If the simulation, you're saying if we prove the simulation is possible, I don't know how you can demonstrate anything is possible if it is in fact unfalsifiable in principle.
The possibility of it being created or the possibility that we live in one?
Either. Pick your possibility. If it's unfalsifiable, I don't know how you can demonstrate it's possible.
Oh, okay. I think, yeah. So for now, it is.
This is an epistemological principle thing. It's not a simulation thing. This is just across the board for any proposition X. If X is unfalsifiable in principle, then it's untestable. And I don't know how you could ever show that X is possible.
So that's what I'm saying. So the claim that we live in a simulation, we can never know that. And as far as we know, it's impossible because we haven't done it. But once we create one, not our own, but create another one, that shows that if it's possible that it's being done, then we might be in one, but we still don't know if we're in one. But you could believe it and still be justified because we've made one. Is that right, or am I off?
Ooh.
No.
I think I have a way of putting this. I think I have another way of putting this.
Okay.
And boy, oh boy, does it become the mother of all conspiracies. I imagine everyone on the line is familiar with The Truman Show.
Yes.
So basic idea. Okay, so basic thing is that Jim Carrey's character is living in a reality TV show, and he's the only real person. Everyone else around him are actors pretending to be his friends and neighbors. And they've been putting on the show literally since he was born. Okay. And there's a control room, and there's Ed Norton, his character, running the whole thing. What if Ed Norton's character is also his own Truman Show? And he creates a Truman Show within his Truman Show. And now Ed Norton's character, he can think, wait a minute, if I can create a world where everyone is pretending to be the friends of this one guy, can I really be sure that everyone here that I'm co-working with is actually working with me, or am I actually part of my own Truman Show and I just didn't realize it? Yeah, so
I love it.
This would be a similar kind of thing, but and at least this setup is at least more physically possible. It's probably not commercially viable, but
yeah.
But I guess if you create a master conspiracy theory, you now have to become extra suspicious of everyone else around you because you've clearly shown it's possible to put on such a massive level of deception that you have to now start doubting everything else around you.
Oh, yeah, I love it. That's great. I'm going to start using that one too. Can I get in one more question, or
if we can do it quick, I'm all in favor of one more.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Matt, I've noticed when you're on I've been becoming very frustrated with trying to speak clearly to people lately because of this show and because of watching First Amendment audits. And so when somebody calls in and they're trying to talk over you and not answer yes or no questions, and you're muting them and you're visibly frustrated, is that more you trying to get them to participate in a good dialogue, or is that more of your ego getting offended, or not offended, but like somebody's trying to come into your house and dictate how things are going, and you're just not going to put up with it? And how
There's no way to answer that. Both have happened, absolutely. I'd love to say that it's all just, no, let's try and get this conversation, but and there's definitely an ego thing. There's also a pissed off on behalf of the disrespect shown to the audience, where we've got this show. All we're asking you is tell us what you believe and why, and we'll go round and round and round and round and round and round in circles and get nowhere. And then we'll try starting over and any number of things. And sometimes it's I really want to get. I always want to get the conversation, but sometimes the no, fuck you, you're not taking over my show thing comes out for sure. And on other occasions, it's okay, you've now disrespected everybody who tuned in to watch this by acting as if you were going to engage in an honest conversation when it's become very clear that you're not, or you're not just incapable. I don't want to just beat up on people who are incapable. It's not. Ignorance can be cured. It's willful, voluntary, gleeful ignorance that fucking drives me nuts.
Me too. Real quick, can I just shout out my theist friends and try to get them to call in?
Okay, that I'll let you shout out, but I don't know how they're going to hear it if they're not already calling in and watching.
I'm showing it. I'm going to clip it and I'm going to show it to them. My coworker Mike,
All right.
Jordan, the jiu-jitsu guy, and the Instagram funny guy YD Lowell. I'll clip it and I'll send it to him.
All right, Mike.
Look, it's fun.
Jiu-jitsu Jordan and the funny guy Lowell. Call us. Just all we need you to do is say, hey, here's what I believe about a God or the supernatural, whatever else. Here's why I think it's reasonable to believe and why I think you should too. That's it. It's that easy.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Aaron.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mason.
Have a good one.
There's your clip. So, Dr. Adair, what did we learn today?
We've learned the magic of friendship. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. I was watching the wrong show.
I tell you, it was so fun to get to reminisce about Mark for a little bit. I don't know if you have that textbook or if you're familiar with his work or anybody else's. I mean, there's a lot of physicists, but for a while, I mean, you know who Weinberg is, and so they all they shared one row of offices, and Arno Bohm basically stirred up some shit when he escaped Germany in, I think, the 30s after he got his degree. But Mark's dissertation on relativistic quantum mechanics, I don't even pretend to understand it. And my favorite thing, and it happens when I talk to you, when I talk to Blitz, when I talk to any people who are genuinely experts in something that I kind of have the most obvious passing knowledge of. It's like, thank you for pretending that you thought I was going to get that. Because one of these days I might get part of it, and that will be cool.
Well, once I figured it out, what I'm even saying, I'll let you know.
That's almost what Mark said. That he, when I kid you not, when I say he was one of the most non-committal guys, if you didn't ask him something like, is X X, it was, well, it could be this way, and it could be, as soon as it's like anytime you fuckers get into relativistic thought, everything becomes non-committal. It's like, well, it might be, but it was so much fun listening to him talk about randomness and watching him do stuff. I miss my friend, but I have new friends, and there are people here. First of all, thank you to all you friends for tuning in and supporting the line. You can hit your super chats, you can like, you can subscribe, you can share the news and get your friends to call in, send shout outs and all that stuff. You can go to linemerch.com. You can go to patreon.com/calltheline and become one of the producers like that. But the most important thing is think and work with us to get more people thinking. That's it. See you next time.